Okay, so I'm gonna give you some evidence.
Absolutely, sure.
I'm just flabbergasted by this,
And I have some
and I
evidence of
hate
my
that
own,
you
as a matter
waited
of
to the
fact.
end of this to do this, because now you see, because now like
but
I don't feel like I have enough time to really
hold
like.
on, hold on. And this is the thing. This was not why I brought up the article in the first place.
Yes, it is. This is what you
No,
wanted.
it's not. No,
You
it's
got
not.
what you wanted, bro.
No.
You got what you
It's
wanted, bro.
actually not.
You
And
make
I'm
it
gonna
quick, because
explain.
I'm about to go in,
I'm
bro.
gonna
Go
explain
ahead.
to you
Go
real
ahead.
quick why I brought it up. Actually,
All right.
the reason why I brought it up is actually more so due to like the economic and like human impact it'll have in the short term. We're talking about not only stifling of like the development of economies that are underdeveloped in Africa and in Asia and things like that, by keeping them from utilizing the very tools that are the causation of development, like
Mm,
what we call development in this country and in other developed nations. We
mm.
don't get that from using renewable energy. It's not possible. It just isn't. One, you're keeping a
I'm not
certain
even
subset.
I'm not even
Well, no,
there
you're
yet,
keeping
dude.
a
I'm
certain.
just trying to get
No,
there.
I know, but I'm trying to tell you like why I brought this up. You're keeping a certain subset of the world's population impoverished, and actually keeping their what's it called, their life expectancy and their survivability lower than ours, just by like like there's a lot more to this. There's like economic sort of incentives for certain governments to invest in renewable energies instead of fossil fuels, but also it's short-sighted in the fact that even the developed nations that are participating in this are seeing like catastrophic rises in their energy costs, and it's self-imposed, and we're doing it for for the really for the reason, the only reason being that there are many faith claims being put out as to the near consequences of climate change, or at least maybe in 100 years or whatever, when we're not actually considering the consequences of people living today. And you may disagree with me, but people living today supersede people who might live 100 years from now
Why?
because they're alive right now.
That doesn't okay. That's a very poor
So
argument.
no,
So
I'm sorry. You have, do you have some sort of moral principle that dictates like the rights of people who aren't even alive yet?
yeah, I think that they should be equal. So for the very same
Okay.
reason that
Equal to but we're talking about a
so
hypothetical person here.
let me establish the principle. For the very same reason that people who tend to be right of center, I would assume you'd be a part of that, care about the unborn before they're born and before they're in existence, right? Is the very reason that we should extend that to
No, but
people
they
who
are in
aren't here yet.
existence, but they're not born yet. That's
They're
not the
not
same
okay.
thing.
Okay, no, okay, fair enough. Like, so when they're in utero, there's an existence there. I'm not denying the ontology
Okay.
of unborn fetuses, but what I'm saying is, even like the principle extends even beyond the point of like before they're even conceived. Like the in principle, you wouldn't want to do anything that would negatively impact the ability, let's say, for a person who wants to conceive a child, even before they've had sex, to do so, right? Because there's some kind of implicit respect for them. Also, in the way that we respect like the will and testament of people long since dead, even, right, is a manifestation of this principle, but in reverse into the past, right? So there's all kinds of examples that I could cite where we take into account the respect that we take ourselves to owe human beings.
No,
And
but what is the working
all I'm
principle?
advocating is that we would extend that into the future. Like, so one basic manifestation or demonstration of this kind of principle is we would not want to do anything with respect to the environment which would make it impossible for future generations to survive. That would be something that I think would be obviously moral, would it not?
Okay, so you think, for example, first off, you have to go off the assumption that we know for without a doubt that it won't the Earth will be less survivable because of our actions today. Like we have to know that for a
No.
fact,
I
and
don't
that
even
is
have to know
not.
for sure. I can use it as a
No,
purely hypothetical. I can say
no,
if
but
it
hold
were
on.
possible.
But if you're actually impacting the lives of billions of people with policies today, you're spending
Yeah,
money, you're impeding
yeah,
certain things from happening
yeah.
in order to stave off something that you don't even actually know is going to happen. That's completely different.
No, fair
It's
enough,
like it
but that's not part of the principle so I
like
don't
it's
need
not
to
the
know
same
for
thing as
sure.
like
I'm saying,
castrating someone, for example, and
but
like we
you
know
asked me
for
to
a fact.
establish a principle. I'm trying to establish it. So what
Okay,
I'm saying is
okay, go ahead.
I can do it in the hypothetical. So even
Hmm.
if I don't know for sure that there's going to be some kind of catastrophic doomsday event. That's a direct consequence of climate policies that we have right now. If left unchanged, like I can say hypothetically, if it were possible for human beings to drastically change our environment such that future generations would no longer be able to survive here, then I can make an argument with the hypothetical that we ought not do that in that situation and in that case. And that would be establishing the principle. Then from there, I would need to establish whether or not, to your point, that we're actually in the process of doing precisely that, which is what you're trying to rebut right now. But I haven't even got there yet. I was just trying to establish the principle. The idea that we're inherently more valuable than future generations of people is an extremely morally controversial idea. I don't buy that for a second.
Oh my. So okay, I'm sorry. You would. So no, that's actually sort of I guess it would be an offshoot of like utilitarianism. Being like you want to create the greatest amount of good possible for the greatest amount of people, even if it actually includes
No, that's not
trip.
That's not my
But
principle. I'd
so,
actually, I
but
think what
then,
you're
but
saying
then,
is utilitarian because you're saying
no,
that it's the greatest happiness for the amount of people who are alive today. And what
no,
I'm
no, no.
saying
That's
is
not what I'm
my
saying at
principle
all.
is
I'm
we
I'm saying
owe.
that there are individual rights that each and every single one of those people. I'm not talking about social groups. I'm not talking about populations. I'm talking about people, human beings that
Well,
are
that is a
alive
population.
today.
That's a population.
Sure, but it's made up of what?
Of people.
Individuals. Yeah,
Yeah, fair
and
enough. Fair enough. Fair
rights.
enough. In the
Groups
plural, but
don't have
my
rights. Like the definition of
well,
justice.
hold on, hold
Groups
on,
don't.
hold
No,
on.
no.
Groups of individuals do have rights, right?
I'm sorry. How so?
Groups of
Because now we're.
individuals have rights. So, for
I
example,
mean, the Ku Klux Klan would
for
actually agree with
example,
you on that.
let's take the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement was a point in history where people were advocating for the civil rights of a particular group of people, a subpopulation of human beings that were being deprived of them systematically, i.e., black people,
The
right?
individual right of people who were belonging to certain groups. At the end of the day, it's
Right. But all
what were those
wait, hold on.
those marches?
But the
Those marches
difference
were.
wait, hold on, I'm trying to make the point clear to you. Okay.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is I agree with you that that the rights are going to pertain to the individuals, but when we're talking about them at the group level, right? We're not saying that the rights belong to the group, whatever that means, whatever kind of level of abstraction you mean by that. What I'm saying is we're talking in aggregate, a group of individuals to each of which we owe rights, and we need to be vigilant and make sure we don't deprive them of those. That's what we're doing. So when we group people together in this way, that's what we're doing for political reasons. That's one of the reasons why we have political advocacy. That's one of the reasons why it's so powerful.
Yeah, but it actually defeats the point sometimes when you're actually giving special privileges to people because they belong to a certain group rather than because of their individual merit, and that happens all the time. Just because we're talking about it in the just because we're using the aggregate in our rhetoric doesn't mean that the principle itself isn't lost to people
Okay,
who
okay,
use
but
those
you're getting a
aggregates.
little lost in the sauce because what I'm trying to argue against. So there's several things again that you said that I'm trying to argue against. One that you won't let go for some reason is that the idea that people who are alive today are somehow priority over or are more valuable than people who are going to
Yeah,
be alive in the future
they have rights because they're
because they
alive.
actually exist
Yeah,
right
they're
now in the
alive.
present.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's
then,
actually
so
what it
then,
means.
okay, so then by that logic, everybody who existed in the past had priority over us now, but back then because
Yeah,
they were alive when we weren't. Correct.
yeah.
So,
Like in their
so
time,
yeah,
before we existed,
yeah.
whatever their individual rights was not superseded by what may
So,
have happened to us when we were when we came into existence.
so if they would have acted in such a way as to make our planet less sustainable right now, that would have been cool because they were alive before we were.
I didn't say it was cool, but there are certain things
Well,
that
wait. Please stop, because I want to hone in on that.
no, no, let
If
me
if
finish
you
my
have
sentence. Let me
any
finish my
kind
sentence.
of
Let me finish my
objection to it,
sentence.
on what basis? Okay, on what basis would it not be cool to you? Because I'm really trying
Uh,
to explore this with you.
because we would in turn have to deal with whatever was happening, whatever the conditions were when we came to be alive.
And wouldn't
But
that constitute an injustice in your view? If we
no,
had to deal with the negligence of previous generation, that would not be
the
an injustice.
negligence. Hold on, the
Yes,
negligence.
yes.
No, no, no. Hold on a second. Again, you're talking about negligence, which is it actually hinges. It hinges on the assumption that they actually had the power to do it in the first place, and
No, I know,
therefore
but
they
I'm
were
using
actually
it as a
guilty.
hypothetical. I'm using it as a hypothetical because I don't want to get bogged down into the argument you really want to have, which is whether or not human beings have the ability to do this. I'm saying hypothetically, if we lived in a world that
Hmm.
we inherited from previous generations, whereby our ability to survive was negatively impacted by the negligence of previous generations. Would you consider that an injustice? Yes or no? This is all hypothetical
Uh,
right now because
mm,
I'm exploring your application of the principle right now.
oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so I wouldn't, because, and then I'll tell you why. Uh, of course, I'm going to tell you why. So the whole concept of justice and the whole concept of like having the right is to be able to have a claim over someone for an action that they took in order to specifically harm you, right?
No, not necessarily, because
Uh,
sometimes people harm people inadvertently or accidentally,
Of course, and it's
or
all
through
tort.
negligence. Like they're not
And
aiming the
yeah,
impact to
the
harm
legal
people.
term for that is tort.
Okay, fine.
So tort is a
I know what
measurable
tort is.
damage.
I
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
tort
yeah.
is. Okay.
But just anyone who doesn't know, but tort is a measurable damage done to someone, uh, and it has to be. You can't do it like what's it called? It has to be like essentially part of like the individual person that you're doing it to, or a group of people, or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
It can't be like a general. Oh well, you ruined this entire part of the world, therefore you are held liable for whatever happens in subsequence to that. um
Why not though? I'm just like, can you? I really need you to walk me through your logic here because I don't understand how you can claim that any group of people or entity, like a corporation or maybe an organization, can
mhm.
cause irreparable, immeasurable harm to subsequent populations and yet not be held responsible legally or morally in any way, shape, or form, just in virtue of the fact that they were alive first. That's a bold claim, if I'm understanding you correctly. And if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong. But I want to know, like, if that's your argument, that's one of the most bizarre arguments I've ever heard.
Oh, sure. I'll clarify. So essentially, what I'm saying to you, and we're talking about, and let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about a one generation's effect on the actual climate and the subsequent suffering of the generation coming after it. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say, for example, and we can make it a pretty tenable example. Let's say we live in on an island, and this island here is mostly forested, and one generation uh, completely uses up the wood. Like essentially, they flatten the island, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which those trees produce food. They had
Yeah.
fauna in them that was providing food for
They can
people.
provide
Yeah, at the
material
time.
to provide shelter, etc.
Yeah, things like that. I think we can agree that's a pretty tenable example,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if that previous generation were to completely what's it called essentially use a scarce and finite resource, at that point they're not responsible for the hardship that people will have once they are born into this world, just as they are not what's it called you're essentially born into this world and you have to deal with the environment as it is. The environment in itself is not unchanging. It's not because before human beings there were no changes in like in environments, for example. Like these things happened consistently. There are places in the world that become arid as a result of, like, for example, an invasive species, or certain types of bugs or whatever it may be, start to eat a certain amount of food. It starts to affect the actual ecosystem, and then in turn that place changes like radically. We're giving what's it called we're looking at human beings as being an exceptional changer of environment. Of course, we're
Yeah.
the best ones at it,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
principle in itself is not based on who's best at it or not. It's like, or who's essentially most impactful. Like
How could it
it's a difference
not?
in
That
degree. It's not a difference. No, hold on. Let me explain. It's a difference in degree and not a difference in type. Do you
but
understand what
it
I'm
is a
saying?
different,
It's
no, because it is a difference
no.
in type, because it is such a vehement difference in degree. That's why it's a difference in
Hold on
type.
a
That's
second. Hold on a
We
second.
have
Hold on
the
a second.
ability to impact the planet in a way that no other non-human animal does. That's a
Sure.
fact.
Sure, absolutely. But
Okay,
it doesn't mean that there aren't other animals that impact the planet in a way
of course
that
there are other
doesn't
animals that
affect
impact the
other.
planet.
Yeah,
Stop it.
but
Okay, of
no,
course
hold
there
on. No,
are.
let me finish my sentence. Let me finish my sentence. That doesn't affect future generations
Of course,
of that same species, of other species,
of
or of
course,
even entire
of course,
ecosystems.
but not to the
Uh,
degree that human beings do. That's why it's
Again,
set. That's
but
why it's
that's
a different
what I'm
kind.
saying. Like you're making a difference in kind in your argument when
Yes,
it's actually a difference in degree.
but it's a difference in kind in virtue of the difference in degree because the difference in degree is so dramatic. That's what I'm saying.
I Okay. So what? At which point does it become? Does it switch from degree to kind?
It's it's
Because the
the gap
consequences we're
between
talking about are the same.
it's the gap between our species and whatever the closest, most impactful non-human species is. That's so pronounced that it actually makes it a difference in kind at that point because it's not even close.
Yeah,
In the
but
same way,
why?
okay, in the same way to analogize it, that we actually categorize the performance of the best or top male athletes versus the performance of the top female athletes as a difference in kind, partly
No, no, no,
because
no.
of the
What? No, no, hold on
degree,
a second. What are you talking about?
partly, hold on, I'm trying to
In
say,
different in
partly
kind.
because of the degree of the difference between the top male performers and the top female performers. That's
So
one
it
of the
becomes a
reasons why.
different sport.
We also do it, wait, I'm trying to be fair here. We also do it because we take males and females to be natural kinds in general. So there's that part too. So you complain about that if you want to. I'm not trying to hide that part. But like even if we considered males and females to be of the same kind and we didn't really acknowledge any differences between males and females, we would definitely acknowledge the differences in performance, all the other things staying the same. And that's what I'm saying is like that's the analogy. Like it's such a difference that it would be weird not to separate them or view them as something that is significantly different. And that's
First
what
off,
I'm saying.
you sound like a bigot right now. But
You could okay, fine, but like I don't really care.
no,
The point still stands.
I
Like
don't think that's a good example because we're talking about the same activity. We're talking about the degree in which someone can
we
actually perform that.
wait. But we're talking about the same activity. That's why it's a good analogy. So we're talking about your ability of a species to impact the climate in such a way as to dramatically lower the ability of subsequent generations or populations of that same species to survive. That we're talking about that with respect to any species.
Yeah,
So it's the same activity.
I'm saying like for example, just because a woman can't run as fast as the top woman can't run as fast as the top man doesn't
Uh-huh.
mean that they're not doing the same kind of thing.
Exactly. And just
But
okay.
but
So
that's my
just
entire
because a
point. Like
non-human animal can't negatively impact subsequent populations as dramatically or negatively as human beings can with respect to their population doesn't mean they're not doing the same activity, which is
okay,
negatively impacting the environment or the survivability of their species. That's the activity.
exactly. And there
So
are
why
hold on a second. There are much more profound impacts on what's it called on like as far as like animals go, we're the most impactful. That's hands down.
yes.
But
Yes.
as far as like impacts that can be had on the environment, the natural changes in the environment are much more impactful than anything human beings have done, and we've seen it
I,
in history, within human history, as a matter of fact.
you're you're all over the place in my opinion
No, no,
right
no,
now.
no. I'm really
Dude,
not. No, hold on a second.
I'm not arguing that human beings have a
We're
greater
talking.
impact than natural impact.
No,
I
hold
don't
on a
even
second. Hold
understand
on.
that dichotomy. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is out of all of the species that have the ability to impact our environment, right?
Yes.
Human beings are clearly the most impactful. And I'm also arguing, consistent with the latest and greatest of climatological science, by the way, which I actually have something to show you from NASA in a second.
No, but
All of
before
the
we
evidence
move
for
on,
climate
real
change. Hold on,
quick.
wait. Human beings have the
Uh-huh.
human beings have historically impacted the planet in ways that are potentially devastating if left unchanged in the future. We have the scientific basis to make claims like that. That is the
Mm,
scientific basis on top of which undergirds climate change science or climate science related to climate change. Okay, that justifies policy positions that are trying to take into account the potential negative, devastating impacts that we can have on our planet and making sure that we either delay those impacts or avoid those impacts, right? You are sitting here arguing as if all of that science is unfounded because of some dude in some article who claimed that the idea that human beings can control climate with carbon emissions, which is the most misleading way to put it, because the
Some
idea isn't
dude,
that we control the climate. The
that dude's
idea
a
is that
climate
we
scientist, actually.
impact the climate. That but control suggests that we're like picking like how many days of summer do we want? All right, let's
No,
emit
no,
this much carbon dioxide or something like that.
that is an ungenerous what's it called? That is actually not even a
To
quote from him.
control
No,
means
hold
that
on.
we are directing
No, no, I
carbon
understand,
emissions
but you're not
to
even
impact the
directly
climate in ways
quoting.
that we intend.
You're
That's what it means.
attributing rhetoric to someone who actually didn't say it. You're quoting the person who wrote the article and attributing it to Herman Hard,
Okay, fine,
who is the
fine.
actual climate
I'll
scientist.
attribute to the author. I'll attribute to the
Yeah,
author.
but
But
that's
I'm
not.
criticizing the claim regardless,
No, I
right?
understand, but my whole point when I brought up as far as like changes that happen naturally that can actually completely lower survivability more than anything that we can actually do. The whole point is the right to have a survivable environment is not
Uh-huh.
something that actually exists. Do you understand what I'm
Dude,
saying?
no, not fully. So there
No,
are
no,
all kinds of naturally occurring phenomena that can negatively impact the survivability of species in human species among them,
that
and
happened
and
naturally has happened for as long.
we would not treat them the same as the set of all man-made or man-prompted or man-caused phenomena that can negatively impact the survivability
Yeah,
of the
but
human
you're
species.
indicting not a person, but a group of people. Like, who are you talking about?
I'm
Like,
not
there.
indicting anyone.
No,
I'm
you
not
are. But
indicting
hold on
anyone.
a second, hold on a
I'm
second,
not.
because
I'm not.
you're talking about like moral, like essentially, like moral responsibility. Moral
Yes.
responsibility is given to a person or to a human race, because that's what we're talking about here.
No. What? No. What I'm saying is the
Because
people
that
who have the
impact is the
ability.
collection of
Wait.
people's actual actions,
No, dude. You have to. So we're not.
is it
I think you're
not?
not being nuanced enough. So the moral part would be strictly applied to the
Hmm.
people who have the ability to change or alter policies that direct human behavior and action in such a way
Oh,
as to
okay.
direct human behavior and action in such a way where it's not continuing to contribute to potentially devastating climate change, but is contributing to either the opposite of that or to the minimization of the harm from those potential outcomes, right? that's that's
So
that's where
how
that's where the criticism comes in. So insofar
I'm
as human
starting to
beings have
understand
the
what you
ability
mean
to
a bit better.
so insofar as human beings have the ability to direct our policies and organize our societies in ways that direct human behavior so that we're not emitting as much carbon, or we're not doing whatever causes droughts, whatever causes the sea levels to rise, right? We're not doing the things that contribute to that, and we're doing the things that make our futures more sustainable on this planet, right? Insofar as we fail to do that, we have a moral failure as a society. So that's the moral implications that I'm
Okay,
talking about.
and if and I'm starting to understand a little bit better who you're attributing blame to, and that's specifically about policymakers. And you don't think that there is a moral blame, a more impending one, as a matter of fact, to someone whose policies lead to the death of millions, if not billions, of people, if those policies actually fail to do not only to do what they're trying to get it to do, but also cause the actual like disappearance of our actual. For example, this is a great example. Agricultural systems around the world are 100% reliant on fossil fuels. If you cut carbon emissions in the agricultural sector by 50%, you're
Uh-huh.
cutting down uh, food production by 50%. That's not.
But
You're
the
telling me
moral
there's
assessment
no
is going to be,
moral implications to
yeah, of
killing.
course there are. Of course there
So
are. But the moral
and I'm
the moral
saying
assessment is going to be,
those are much more impending and actually supersede the rights of people who don't exist yet. Like that's I don't think that's a crazy claim, and I don't think that's actually
well, that's not what you
something.
claimed before. So
No, no, no.
you're
But
attempting to be more nuanced now, which I appreciate. But
no, no. But
the point I'm making still stands. So I'm not denying that the moral assessment of the situation such as you described it would be more complicated, because basically it will become kind of a
mhm.
conundrum or a moral dilemma, because you have to weigh competing interests. You have to weigh the competing interests of the people who are alive today versus the people who are going to be alive later. You have to weigh the competing interests of the people who benefit from the status quo in terms of our energy versus the people who would stand to benefit later from for whatever technological or advancements we make in the energy sector, etc. And a lot of that stuff is really hard to assess because a lot of it is not strictly speaking predictable or reliably predictable, right? So there's ambiguity in the assessment itself, right? Also, you have the prospects that we can attempt to implement policies that fail to reach their desired outcome and instead bring about further devastating consequences, even in the attempt to quote unquote save the planet, right? And so I think you're taking for granted that that's going to happen, or that that's more likely to happen for some reason. But let's say that it happens. The immoral assessment of the attempt to save the planet, and then that resulted in a failure and some catastrophic things, would like that would be a complicated, nuanced moral assessment, and there would be some people to blame for that for sure. No one, I don't think that I would argue that the policymakers in question would be blameless for the catastrophe that they brought about, even though it was well intended. One of the biggest criticisms that I have for a lot of Democrat policies right now, the status quo, is that a lot of them are very well intended, but they end up doing the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing, right? And those are fair criticisms, I think. But I also take into account what the intentions were, or at least I try to whatever
Yeah,
extent I believe
but
that the intentions were well
there's a
intended.
huge assumption as to what the intentions are, especially when it comes to
Fair enough.
policy.
Fair enough. But
It's
that's a part of
giant.
the.
As a matter of fact, I
That's
think
fine.
that's
That's
not
I
even
agree with
something to
that. But
rely on.
that's part of the assessment, though, is I have to a certain extent, like it's impossible to conclude the assessment unless I make some basic assumptions. And so I have sometimes I and actually that assessment is fallible in virtue of the fact that I could be wrong about those assumptions, right? But what I was trying to illustrate was that the moral calculus involved would be taking into account these factors. One, two, it doesn't change my main point. The main point that I was making was the idea that we can. You argued in such a way that suggested that you think that we can disregard future generations and the impacts that our decisions today can have on them merely in virtue of the fact that we're alive now and they're not. And what I was problematizing was that idea.
Okay. So, and to be fair, you weren't actually being very nuanced, as a matter of fact, as far as like who's to blame, for example, as much um, as far as like directing human action, which is something that is impossible to do. As a matter of fact, you can make policies all you want. You're not going to control what people do. Um,
I would say I didn't verbalize the nuance. I have always been nuanced because what I verbalized later, I always thought.
Sure, but I was arguing against what you verbalized.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair. That's fair.
And point is, as far as what's it called? What you just mentioned with the consequences of these policies and who is to blame, and the fact that it would be immoral to disregard the consequences in future generations, despite the fact that we cannot entirely even tell whether or not one of the main points, the reason why I brought this up also is like the whole like 99% of climate scientists agree, or 99% of scientists agree that climate change is actually real and happening is completely false. And
What?
absolutely,
According to who?
according to who is it 99%?
Dude, what? Like, so
No,
do
no,
you
no.
like
Oh,
cite a poll so I can, because it depends on the poll
no,
you're
but
referring.
that's okay. That's a claim that's been made. Like
But it's
I'm
okay.
not. The burden of proof is not on me.
Okay, I can. I mean,
And
I can
it
provide
it is
evidence.
sure you can. But what's it called? What's it called? And these 1,100 scientists scientists and professionals who signed this declaration are a big like show of an actual dissenting voice within the movement, which claims the complete opposite. And it's like what are they all? What's it called? My point is, this is not settled science. As
I
much
got
as people would love to talk,
97%, bro. 97%.
97%. Oh,
Yeah,
so
I'm about to establish it.
we're using ad populum fallacies now.
That's higher. That's higher than the percent of protests that were mostly peaceful.
That's hilarious. But
Black Lives Matter.
either way, the number of people who agree with a certain conclusion is not proof that it is actually true. It isn't.
Yeah,
Like
but you're
logically, it isn't.
you're downplaying
I
the
am.
epistemological value of scientific consensus, and I don't like the way you're
I
doing it. So
no
let
no
me establish the
I
facts real
act-
quick.
no, but I actually do downplay it deliberately, as a matter of fact, because it is
I
not a
know.
logical argument.
Okay,
It's not a logical argument.
all
But
right,
hold
let
on
me
a second.
counter it
Hold on.
because you
No,
said a
hold
lot
on.
of stuff.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't even go into what I was
Dude,
trying to say.
can
No,
I
I didn't.
just
Bro,
eviscerate this real quick,
nah,
please?
hold on.
Because you've
Stop,
been
stop,
saying a
stop,
lot of stuff,
stop.
bro.
Nah, stop. Hold on. Hold on.
Oh,
Hold on.
come
Hold on.
on,
Hold on.
man.
Nah, bro. Hold
Let
on.
me can I go in real
Because
quick, please?
hold on. Hold on. Let me finish this real quick.
You keep
Point
droning
is,
on, and I feel like you're trying to block
no,
me
no.
from just
I'm really not. I'm really not, because I do have cogent points to make. One, the
dude.
scientific consensus of a certain issue is not proof that it's actually true. Like
Not necessarily.
most
It's possible to have scientific consensus overwhelmingly in favor of something
yeah,
that turns out to be
but
false.
it's
You're right.
not. Of course,
There
like that
used to
happens
be
all the time.
they used to cite all of the scientists that said smoking was healthy or some shit, right? For example.
There's millions of examples of this.
Okay,
Bloodletting
fine.
or washing your
Okay,
hands
okay,
before
fine.
you
Okay,
do
fine.
operations.
I agree with that.
Um,
I agree with that.
Point is,
In general, I agree
there
with the
there
possibility, I
is
should say.
yeah, of course. I mean, it's basically logic. But the point is, there are dissenting voices within the movement that are
I
absolutely and utterly shut down. Not only one by ridicule, two by not being funded whatsoever by these international scientific boards, who for some reason, it's almost like there's a lot of money in it, like trillions of dollars, who for some reason are gung ho and completely convinced of the predictions that are being made and have been made for probably like 5 decades at this point, or actually, it's been like 6 decades of these predictions, which again and again we've seen fail again and again. So it's like we're continuing to buy something that has consistently been used to make faith claims that have not materialized. And on top of this, we're talking about changes in temperature that have happened in a more drastic way within human history prior to the industrial age. Like, actually, as a matter of fact, 1,000 years before the industrial age. And I can
But
share my
climate change
screen
is
and
not
see,
just
like,
about temperature change. I just want to. I keep telling you that, and it feels like it's not
okay,
sticking.
and we can talk about the what's it called, the average what's it called, occurrence of like droughts, for example, or floods, and by
Rising
the
sea
way,
levels,
these are
melting polar
rising
ice
sea
caps.
rising sea levels.
Those are correlated. Yeah, no, I'm
Uh,
dead serious. Rising sea levels is correlated with melting polar ice
No,
caps.
but I know what you're saying, but I'm saying, like, since we've talked about this since the 1800s, like the rise in sea level has not been a real issue, as a matter of fact, and we can see it's not even a uniform issue, as a matter of fact. Certain places it has risen more than other places. Certain places not at all, actually.
I,
Um,
okay, but it's still an issue. Okay,
hold
well,
on,
I'm not saying
but
it's uniform. I'm saying it's these are things. These are examples of climatological phenomena shifting or changing in various different places on the planet that go beyond rising temperature. That's all I'm
yeah,
saying. So I'm trying to be
but
more
a lot
nuanced
of
about what
those
we're
are
talking about.
weather patterns, and weather is
Yeah,
not the
and that's
same thing
the
as.
climate.
Yeah,
Climate
okay, but
entails the weather.
yeah, but all of the worst floods that have happened in
Uh,
like the past like 100 200 years
uh,
have happened mostly in the Bay of Bengal. Like most of them.
okay.
Like the vast majority of them happened in one place on the planet. It's
Okay.
like these things, or for example, in America, like we have things like Tornado Alley, where like almost 80% of the world's tornadoes occur in this one place. It's like you can
That's not a
continue.
refutation of climate
No,
change.
no. Let me
It's a
finish my sentence, and
demonstration of it.
you'll understand what I'm talking about. We're talking about weather patterns. We're talking about fluctuations in weather
In
patterns.
part, we're talking
These
about weather patterns.
that's but we're using that as an example of a climatological consequence, and
Uh,
that's actually a non-linear junction between those two things. It's
but I never
like
said it was
it's not.
linear. I don't
No,
know
oh
that
my
any
god! But the
climate
claim
scientists say that.
But we're talking about increases in floods and increases in droughts, right? And forest
Uh,
fires, right?
uh,
These are
yes, but the causal
weather
mechanisms are way more
phenomenons.
nuanced. Yeah, but they're not like
You can
dominoes.
call
Like
it nuance. You can call it nuance, but it's actually
they're
not
way more
something that we can look
complex.
forward to.
What I'm saying is the causal relationships are way more complex than they're not one to one. It's not like one domino hits another domino, that hits another domino, and then all of a sudden we got a hurricane. Like that's not quite how it works. And so if your model for what people are saying in this discourse is that it's not an accurate model.
I'm sorry, we're not talking about like predictions of increases in floods and increases
No,
in
we are
droughts
talking
and
about predictions of increases in various different climatological phenomena
due to what?
as a result of carbon emissions. But
Uh huh.
what we're not doing is
But
saying that
carbon emissions lead to
that
what
those
though?
causal mechanisms are linear. That's what we're not saying.
But hold on a second. The reason why those it's considered carbon is considered a causal mechanism, a causal factor, is because it
Uh,
raises the temperature of the earth, right?
that's part of what it does. Yeah, for sure.
But that's most of what we're talking about.
That's
Like,
well,
because we're
that's
talking
one
about
part of
like,
a wait. No, wait. That's one
no,
part of
no,
a
no, hold on a
complex
second. But
climatological system of
I've
weather.
heard this claim being made
Dude,
multiple times, like
wait.
2%
You gotta
increase
let
in
wait,
temp
wait, wait.
in general.
You gotta let me get it out so that I can make sure you understand. in no uncertain terms what's wrong with the claim you're making. Okay. Like we're talking about that as one facet of a complex system of climatological phenomena that has various different effects, right? And it's not just one to one. Like this causes this, this causes this, this causes this. Now we have a tornado. That's not how. It's not quite how it works, right? Like the
So
causal
how does it
mechanisms are
work?
so
But like
nuanced, and that,
talk about the nuance. Like be specific about
but I'm
that
not a
nuance.
climate expert, so I can't even give you
But
an
hold on a second.
accurate.
Hold on a second. But then you're talking to me about a mechanism that you do not understand,
I
right?
understand it enough to know that it doesn't work the way you
But
describe it,
what
though.
part of it do you understand, and what part, like, what
I
are the
understand.
mechanics that
I
you understand?
understand that it is complex in a particular kind of way, and that it
Yeah,
is not
but
linear. That's what
but
I understand.
how? But what mechanisms? What mechanisms do you know? Like at least an overview of
What mechanisms for what specifically? Like, do you want me to explain the causal
anything
mechanisms of hurricanes?
of
Do you want me to explain
of
the
not
causal
hurricanes,
mechanisms of
not hurricanes,
what do you
but
want me
the
to explain then?
changes. You said that there are nuances in the
Uh-huh.
causal relationship between the temperature rise, the what's it called? Well, actually, let's start with carbon emissions, which
Uh-huh.
then cause temperature rise, among other things, and
Right?
which eventually lead to a complex system that puts out, as far as like adverse and catastrophic
Yeah, like
weather
melting
patterns.
polar ice caps and things like that, right?
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
want you to explain the mechanism that we're talking about, and if you can as well.
But I don't have the relevant climatological expertise to
But
do
then
that.
what are you quoting?
I'm quoting the scientists that which you won't let me read from
B-
NASA who say
no,
that
but
first of all that scientists agree on climate change. The vast
okay,
majority of
so
actively
they agree
publishing
on it.
climate
Sure.
scientists, 97% agree that humans are causing global warming and climate change. Most of the
Hmm.
leading science organizations around the world have issued public statements expressing this, including
Hmm.
international and U.S. science academies, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the whole host of reputable scientific bodies around the world. A list of these organizations is provided here. I just clicked on that. I can show that if you guys want me to. There's also a whole bunch of sources that we can
Hmm.
read that establish all of the evidence that is that
Yeah,
that that,
but what
that the
is that?
scientific consensus is based on.
But
So
let's
do
get
you want me
into
to
that.
open up
Like,
the source? Okay, fine.
yeah, but
So
like,
scientific consensus
because you
Earth
talk
climate.
about it, and you're defending a mechanism that I want you to actually extrapolate on.
Okay, fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I'm not an expert. You're asking a non-expert to give you expert level information. So if that's what you're asking for, that's not going to happen because I'm not an expert. But I can do my best because I have no problem um,
Hmm.
citing all of my sources up against your lack of sources.
I can give you. Listen,
For
if you
sure.
want sources, I can actually pull up one. I actually have one
I
pulled up. As a matter
dare
of fact.
you. I dare you, in fact.
Oh,
So
okay.
here we go. I am going to let's see. Hold on. Where did it go? Is it showing? Okay, here it goes. All right, here we go. How do we know climate change is real? Okay, this is from NASA. NASA does not strike me as particularly all that biased. As further evidence for this, we have ground news. 69% is centrist, whereas this is which is where I live. 19% right leaning, 12% left leaning. So it's more centrist and right leaning than anything else for sure. I guess you could
What,
say
NASA?
it's more centrist and left leaning than right leaning, and it's more right leaning and centrist leaning than left leaning, but it's mostly centrist. Yeah, NASA. Um, so there is unequivocal evidence that the Earth is warming at an unprecedented rate. Human activity is the principal cause. Okay, takeaways. While Earth's climate has changed throughout history, the current warming is happening at a rate not seen in the past 10,000 years. According to Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, since systemic scientific assessments began in the 1970s, the influence of human activity on the warming of the climate system has evolved from theory to established fact.
Hmm.
Scientific information taken from natural sources such as ice cores, rocks, tree rings, and from modern equipment like satellites and instruments all show signs of a changing climate. From global temperature rise to melting ice sheets, the evidence of a warming planet abounds. Okay. The rate of change since the mid 20th century is unprecedented over millennia. Earth's climate has changed throughout history. Just in the last 800,000 years, there have been 8 cycles of ice ages and warmer periods, with the end of the last ice age about 11,700 years ago, marking the beginning of the modern climate era and of human civilization. Most of these climate changes are attributed to very small variations in Earth's orbit and that change the amount of solar energy our planet receives. Okay. Now, here's a graph here. This is going back millennia, like freaking 800,000 years ago.
Can you zoom in on
And
that? I can barely
yeah,
see
yeah,
it.
yeah. I got you. Better?
Yeah, there you go.
there's a little chart here. Um, this is the carbon dioxide level parts per million, measured in parts per million. Okay. So right here is the 1950 level, and up here is the current level. But this goes back 800,000 years ago. So you can see how the levels have been up and down. And I think these spikes at the top are the eight, uh, or maybe the lows actually would be the correspond to the ice ages,
Hmm.
the eight ones that they mentioned. For millennia, atmospheric carbon dioxide had never been above this line. And this is what line it was in 1950. This is the current level. Okay. This is something that was actually, I remember this was emphasized in that one documentary, Inconvenient Truth. Um, so so science has established that there is a correlation between the rise in carbon dioxide levels and various different climatological phenomena. So it stands to reason that if the levels are here in the modern age, that we're going to see more drastic climatological phenomena as a result, to whatever extent that these contribute to it. Right? Like this is established science. Let me undo. Let me reset the distance or whatever. Okay. The current, and I'm not going to read all of this. The current warming trend is different because it is clearly the result of human activity since the mid 1800s and is proceeding at a rate not seen over many recent millennia. Okay. I have a citation here if you want me to read that. It is undeniable that human activities have produced the atmospheric gases that have trapped more of the sun's energy in the Earth's system. So the part of the global warming phenomenon, as it used to be called, is that the more carbon dioxide you have in the atmosphere, the more of the sun's energy that you can trap in the atmosphere. Hence, warming, the increase in temperatures, etc.
Hmm.
This extra energy has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land, and that's one of the contributing factors to melting polar ice caps. And widespread and rapid changes in the atmosphere, ocean, cyrosphere, and biosphere have occurred. Last paragraph I'm read. Earth orbiting satellites and new technologies have helped scientists see the big picture, collecting many different types of information about our planet and its climate all over the world. These data collected over many years reveal the signs of the patterns of a changing climate. So to deny that human beings have the ability to impact these very advanced, complicated systems is weird in virtue of all of this kind of evidence. You'd have to deny the factual scientific basis of all of this evidence in a way that explains how
Um,
these causal explanations don't work or how they're
the,
problematic.
but notice how they actually don't say causal. You use causal.
That what? That's
You
implied logically though.
no. You don't imply causality. You prove
Dude,
causality.
what?
No.
This
You're
no,
talking about
this is
correlation.
establishing
Oh,
causal relationships though. That's what the data does.
no. It's establishing correlation.
Oh, okay, fine. You're right. So
But
they are
that's a huge
establishing a
no. Hold
lot
on.
of
But that's
correlation. No, no,
that's a
I'm not trying to
huge
trivialize it.
point.
I'm not trying to trivialize it, but one of the reasons why you do this is because a lot of specific kinds of correlation imply causation, bro. Like one correlation doesn't necessarily imply a causation between two, like if there's a correlation between two different things in a system, that doesn't necessarily imply causation. But if you have consistent correlations, that does, and that's what this is establishing. This is a plethora or preponderance, I should say, of evidence in favor of the idea that human beings have the ability to impact the planet in such a way as to cause a lot of the potentially devastating climatological phenomena that we're seeing that give rise to droughts, that give rise to forest fires, that give rise to multipolar ice caps, which negatively impact not only human species but other non-human species, which could contribute to hunger, which could contribute to people drowning, which could contribute to people losing their homes, people burning to death, which can contribute to people not being able to get potable water, and people not being able to water their crops. That can contribute to starvation as well, etc. Like we depend on our environment and our planet in various different ways to survive, dude. Like that's obvious. Like I don't, I at this point, I don't even understand what you're arguing. like, like even if we went with the whole correlation thing, like nothing about these correlations would undermine the idea that human beings are doing things that are
But
giving rise to these effects.
but that's not a logical argument. Like if we're talking about
How?
the claim that human beings are the main cause of this climate change, we don't do it. We don't provide evidence and what's it called? An established causality simply by establishing correlation. That's not how
Also,
that works.
also, just to correct you factually, so this
Hmm.
site did actually say cause, by the way. There's unequivocal evidence that the Earth is warming at an unprecedented rate. Human activity is the principal cause. So I just wanted to
Yeah,
establish
and
that.
sure, they can make that claim, but they did not establish causality.
They, okay, how what would it take to establish causality, and how have they not
One,
established causality?
one. You would have to actually come up with a falsifiable theory, meaning like there are things that you are able to find, like you know what falsifiability is, of course.
Yes,
Being able to find factors that are like disproving the theory that you're making. There's no such thing.
there is falsifiability to this, dude.
Wait, please point it out.
Okay, so you want me to point out what the falsifiability of climate change is?
Yes, because it has not been. I guarantee you won't be able to because there is none.
1 second.
Also, what's it called? Um, although that what's it called? Like you showed a oh shit, almost almost exited out. So if you superimpose the temperature to that graph of carbon emissions, do you think it would actually match?
Sorry, ask the question again.
If you superimpose temperature with that graph, would it match?
If I superimpose temperature with the graph that I showed, would it
Like
match
as
this
as
graph?
as carbon emissions, yeah, as
This
carbon emissions went up, you would see an increase in temperature. And as carbon emissions went down, you would see a decrease in temperature.
okay.
Do you think that would happen if you superimpose those periods?
Do I think that so when the spike in carbon, would there be higher temperatures, like average temperatures? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Not necessarily, because I don't think that so carbon emissions, the more carbon you have in the atmosphere, my understanding is that it traps more of the solar energy. That doesn't necessarily correspond to hotter temperatures everywhere on the planet.
But the average global temperature is what we use to measure that.
Right. So I
So
mean,
that's
if you're talking about
that's
the
taking into
average, if
account
you're
the
talking
entire
about the
system.
average, I don't. So the average global temperature. So if you're talking about the average global temperature, I would expect there to be the highest temperatures that we have on record around the time where we have the highest we've ever had in the last 800,000 years in parts per million in carbon dioxide, which I think is
Okay.
true.
Can
So I'd
I
expect
can I
that.
share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. I'd like to show you what that looks like in temperature. Um, do you see it?
I think so. I see a graph.
I'm trying to zoom in here. There we go. So, as far as temperature, uh, we're talking about like right around here is essentially where we've had this spike. This is actually what corresponds with that gigantic, unprecedented spike in carbon dioxide right here. You see that, right? Modern warm period.
Yeah.
So this is temperature.
So thousands of years before present. So 0 years before present. Okay.
Yeah. 2,000 years ago, the temperature during the Roman warm period was higher than it is right now.
What do you mean the temperature? You
The
mean the
global
average?
average temperature was higher than it is right now.
Okay.
Look, actually, this is like central Greenland temperature in Celsius.
Okay.
So we're talking about like melting ice caps and
Uh-huh.
like temperatures in the places we're talking about these ice caps. So
Uh-huh.
prior to that, in the Bronze Age, the temperature was even higher than that uh, previous peak in the Roman warm period,
The average
despite the
global
fact,
temperature.
no, central Greenland temperature.
I don't know what that means.
So Greenland being the North Pole.
So the temperature of one place on the planet, basically.
So where are the ice caps?
There's ice caps near Greenland for sure. There's one of them.
That's what we're
The
talking
one in
about.
the
Like,
North Pole. Yeah, but
but that's
sorry,
but that's
but
where
I
when we
thought
talk
you
about
said
melting ice caps.
We are talking about so one of the things that is often talked about in climate science is the melting polar ice caps for sure. I'm not denying that. What I was trying,
as a
I'm a little
subsequence of.
annoyed by what I feel like is now. I'm starting to feel is a little bit of a sleight of hand because I thought you said that the average global temperature
We can do that too.
was
This is just
higher.
one. This is just one chart.
Okay, fine, but like that's the reason why I asked the question I asked because I'm trying to specify what you're saying. So if this is
Okay,
not the average global
we can
temperature, that's
do.
fine. But if you
Look,
want to take the temperature of one place on the planet, where I guess where the polar, and then what's weird is like you left Antarctica out of
no,
it, but
hold
that's
on.
fine. I don't care. Like
Hold on, hold
that's
on, hold
fine.
on.
That's fine.
We can
But now
do
I understand what this means. I understand what this
we
means
can
now.
no, no, I get you, but we can do global average temperature as well.
Okay.
Uh,
I just the whole planet doesn't rise and fall at the same time with the that's not how it works. That's
no,
the
hold on a
point I was
second.
trying to
Hold on a
make.
second. No, no, no. But we're if we're talking about global average temperatures, which is the
It's an
this is
average.
of course,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the temperature in Sri Lanka. We're not talking about the temperature in Texas. We're talking about global average temperatures, and that's what we're measuring when we're saying like changes in like as far as global warming. That's what it means. So if we're going to talk
Dude,
about
this
the
this is
carbon,
such
hold on a second, hold on a second. If we're going
like
to talk about carbon emissions and their relationship with temperature, we're going to
why
like,
are you
what are we
honing
talking?
in on temperature as if that's the only climatological phenomena that actually is impacted by the rise the amount of carbon emissions or carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? Like that's what's annoying me because I
Because
started us
because
by establishing that there's a bunch of different phenomena that interact in very complex ways that go
like which
beyond just
ones?
rising temperatures.
Like which
Rising
ones?
temperatures is a factor. Rising
No, but
temperatures in
hold
various
on.
places on the planet is a factor in a lot of climatological phenomena, but it isn't. It doesn't work like that
But
where
give
it's
me an
just like
example.
rising temperatures, more hurricanes, rising temperatures, more tornadoes,
No, that's
rising
not what I
temperatures,
said.
more
That's
droughts,
not what I
rising
said. So
but
rising average.
you're
No, hold on
arguing
a
in a
second.
way that suggests that that's what you're saying when it's not
Yeah,
true. And so that's what I'm even
but
annoyed
that's
by.
not what that's not what I'm saying at all. And I'm talking about, and I'm actually making a very very specific point right now, and I don't want to
Okay.
distract from it. And I'm talking about the relationship between carbon dioxide and
Mhm.
temperature. Is there a correlation
Why?
between carbon
Why?
dioxide?
Why are you
No,
doing
hold
that?
on a
Why are you
second.
doing that? Wait,
I'm
but
sorry.
establish the relevance of
Is
that.
there
Why are you honing in on that?
is there
As if
is
nothing else
there
matters.
so what effect does carbon dioxide have on the atmosphere?
Carbon dioxide has a whole bunch of effects on our climatological
What is
phenomena.
it?
It's not just one.
Okay,
It's not just there
can
more
you
carbon
actually like
dioxide. Therefore, this happens. That's not how it works,
no, no,
dude.
no. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Then what is the claim that is being made? Like, be specific.
Dude, so you want me to read it again?
I mean, dude, that what we oh, if you
Like
want to, but that's
the
actually my
current
point.
warming
Like,
trend is different because it is
oh,
clearly
actually,
the
I
result of
realized I
human
wasn't sharing the
activities.
right screen. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
You weren't so here. The current warming effect trend is different because it's clearly the result of human activity system in 1800s and
Uh huh.
is proceeding at a rate not seen over many recent millennia.
Hmm.
It is undeniable that human activities have produced atmospheric gases that have trapped more of the sun's energy in the Earth system.
Hmm.
Now, that Earth system encompasses a lot of complexity here in terms of climatological phenomena, in terms of
That's not the
in terms of what the causal mechanisms for hurricanes are, what the causal mechanisms for tornadoes are, what the causal mechanisms for floods are, what the causal mechanisms for droughts are, what the causal mechanisms for the melting of polar ice caps are. That's
yeah.
complicated,
But what
bro.
is it trapping? What is it trapping?
It's trapping sun's energy,
How is the sun? No, no, no.
among which are things that
In
give
which
rise to
form?
the things that give
In
rise
which
to
form
things that give
is that
rise to higher
energy?
temperature. It's a bunch of dude. First of all, the sun's energy. Oh my God. So you have all kinds of things from the light spectrum, including but not limited to ultraviolet rays. You have all kinds of radiation, a lot of which is kind of kept from us because it would like destroy us if it weren't for the magnetic shit that happens in with the earth and stuff
So
like
there
that.
are electromagnetic fields. There is
Yeah.
also mostly
It
energy
deflects a
in the
lot
form
of
of
solar
heat.
radiation that's harmful, is my point. And you have the ozone
Yeah,
and
but
the protection that it gives us, etc.
it says
Right?
this extra energy has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land.
Yes.
So the energy that's been trapped
Yes.
within this Earth system by
Yes.
carbon dioxide has
Yes.
warmed the
Yes.
atmosphere, the ocean, and the land.
Yes.
So carbon
And
dioxide and those atmospheric gases
uh
trapped energy
yes.
that warms the
Yes.
planet.
Yes.
That is not any different from what I just said.
Yeah, but no, but the part that you're
But that's what it
trying
says.
really desperately to
I'm
ignore
really
is
not.
that the
I'm
causal
really not
mechanisms
because
involved, hold on, the causal mechanisms involved in the climatological phenomena that we see, right, are more than just rising temperatures, therefore tornado. Like the way that they
oh
interact is
man, but you keep
complicated, bro.
saying this, and my entire point, my entire that's definitely not what I'm arguing, and I don't know why you think that that's what I'm arguing because my entire point is the fact that climate and weather are not the same thing, and people often conflate them by saying that the climate change will then in turn change the like. Or I'm sorry, what I mean is like the
Dude,
people use changes in weather as
uh-huh.
evidence for climate change when I'm saying that it's not that simple.
Why
That
wouldn't it?
is actually,
Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it
dude,
be evidence for
you
climate change?
literally just said that it's more complex than this
Yes.
happens. Therefore, there are tornadoes. Therefore, there are floods. And I'm literally
Yeah.
saying the same thing. And I'm literally saying it because people use that as evidence of like, oh, well, of course the Earth is warming because this thing happened, which implies the mechanism of Earth warming due to carbon dioxide causing those weather phenomenons.
So you keep saying things that are just baffling to me. So like the
Oh my
idea
god.
that changes in weather patterns can't count as evidence for global climate change is weird because the weather is a part of the climate, right? Like how does the weather relate to the climate in your opinion?
The weather, as a matter of fact, the definition of climate is the collection of several weather systems. So
Uh-huh.
an individual weather event is not
Uh-huh.
only like it's like two or three levels of magnitude below what is considered like what's it called enough time and what's it called an area of weather patterns
Okay,
to
I
be
agree.
considered what
I
a
agree with
climate
that.
is.
Can I stop you right there and say I agree with that?
Okay, yeah.
I don't think any climatologist or climate scientist who believes in global climate change worth their weight is arguing that individual weather events prove global climate change. They're talking about weather patterns over ridiculous spans of time. We're talking 800,000 years in the graph alone that I showed you, right? We're not we're not just talking about one day was a hurricane,
Yeah.
therefore climate change, right?
Okay,
We're not
exactly.
talking about
But
Hurricane
that's
Katrina, therefore climate change.
but you're
We're
saying that
saying
that's what I'm arguing when I'm like
no, 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 no.
like
Wait, wait,
that's
wait.
one of
Stop.
the
That's not what
things
I said. I didn't say that.
that
I didn't
drives
say
me
that's what
crazy.
you're arguing. I'm saying no climate scientist is arguing that individual weather events are proving climate change. What they're talking about are weather patterns over extended period, ridiculously long spans of time, particularly focusing in on the span of time that human beings have existed and
Okay,
comparing
and
them with ones where we, pre-industrial age and stuff like that, so that we can get a sense for what's kind of normal.
okay, and then they're making predictions as to what the weather events that we're going to be facing due to the patterns that they've actually detected, right?
Eventually,
Like
yeah,
they're
they do
yeah, yeah.
because
So
of
they're making weather predictions.
they're making, I think, justifiable predictions that if we know that the higher amount of carbon emissions or carbon dioxide that you have in the atmosphere tends to lead to the kinds of climatological phenomena that make it hard to survive and it can have devastating consequences for certain species, including but not limited to human
Uh-huh.
beings,
Perfect.
then it stands to reason that if we have the highest amount of carbon emissions that we've ever had in human
Uh-huh.
history, then
Uh-huh.
there's probably going to be a continuation or even a worsening reasonably of those
Okay.
conditions.
All right.
That's a fair prediction. It doesn't
Okay.
say that on this date in this year in fucking 2070 that we're going to have a hurricane. It's saying that we're probably going to have some worse weather. We're probably going to have a continuation of sea level rising because we're already seeing it. We're probably going to have more melting of polar ice caps. That's probably going to lead to more floods, particularly in areas like I think it was like uh, Florida, where it's like the level is lower than other areas in the country. Um, we're probably going to see an extinct. Probably that's going to contribute to the extinction of polar bears because I don't know. There was that
The
documentary
ice
I saw a
caps
long time
are
ago.
melting.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
polar ice caps,
no.
etc.
Yeah,
It's gonna change
there's
the yeah. So like that's those are fair predictions. Like
yeah,
you're acting
but
like
that's what
motherfuckers
I'm
are pulling
talking
shit out of
about.
their ass. Like
They kind of are, to be honest with you.
how,
Uh,
bruh?
because
How?
like you just explained, like you just read out of there, the carbon dioxide which they're using as like they're not using what's it called, um, like, and if you have other mechanisms that you want to describe to me, I would love to hear them. But as far as we go right now, we're talking about the trapping of energy, thermal energy, as a matter of fact, specifically. And we're talking about how it correlates with the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And I'm
Yes.
telling you that the temperatures, the thermal energy trapped in the earth, that's what temperature is. Like
Yes.
there's thermal energy trapped in the earth,
Uh-huh.
was higher before this extremely unprecedented level of carbon emissions. And I'm telling you that
Wait,
that is a
that
basic
doesn't,
flaw in.
dude. That doesn't follow from the. Okay, let me show everybody
Dude,
your thing. That
I
doesn't
can
follow from
show
the
you.
graph that you. So
No,
this
no,
graph
no, no,
here,
no. Let me share my screen right now because I'm gonna show you a
you're
million year
sharing it right
outlook
now.
on. No, hold on. I'm not sharing the right page though.
Okay.
So this right here is a chart from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration from 2008, and this is a
From
million year
2008.
outlook. 2008, yes.
Yeah.
Uh, this is a million year average global temperature.
You got to
Um,
make it bigger.
hold on. Is that better?
No, it didn't budge.
It didn't
Can you?
budge.
No. Did you zoom in?
I did. It's way bigger on my screen right now.
Nope, it didn't budge at all.
That's
It
super
looks
strange.
exactly the same.
It's still,
Yeah.
bro. That's weird. Oh wait, hold on. It opened it. Let me share the actual. It opened a pop up. That's why. So let's see
And
here.
I gotta go in less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, me too,
All
actually.
right, this is bigger. Go
Um,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. So this is a million year outlook on the global average temperature, and we're
Right.
talking about currently right now. So this includes that 1950 period of unprecedented rise in global temperature. As you can
Well,
see,
up to 2008, right?
up to 2008. But that
Yeah.
chart that you showed, it started in like 1950. Like
Yeah,
as
but
far as like
it went to
the 1950
2020.
line.
It went yeah, but it went to the 2020s. But go ahead.
Okay, sure.
Right, go
But
ahead.
either way,
I don't know how much higher the difference is of 12 years. To be fair.
yeah, it's either way. There the corresponding. If we're talking about correlation between temperature and the amount of gases that are in the atmosphere trapping energy, then what is going on with all of these periods? And we went back 800,000 years in in that chart, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So in the last 800,000 years, even 400,000 years ago, where the what's it called? Um, the global emissions, the carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere was a fraction of what it is today. Yet the
Yep.
global average temperature was able to rise past what it is today,
Yep.
and it did
Wait.
that
Temperature
multiple
fluctuation.
times.
Average temperature relative to today in degrees Celsius. Okay. Okay. So
It
this is a
hit.
global average.
Yes, just
Okay.
just the same as we use to measure the global average temperature today, and that we
Yeah.
use to make predictions as far as the impact of climate change.
How do
We
wait?
can see
How do we measure them this far back? What do we use?
ice core samples.
We measure the temperature. Okay. All right. Cool.
Like they can derive it somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I got it. You're right.
What's it called? But the fact that it has multiple times reached that temperature level without a corresponding emission level, like we have to seriously take into consideration what that correlative relationship is. It's certainly not causal if you're seeing this, but what is that correlative relationship between temperature and greenhouse gases?
That's fair. So okay.
Like
So it seems so okay. So I'm trying to distill what you're saying. So we have at least one, two, three times in the last million years where
in the last 400,000 years
the
alone, not even as
well
far
yeah,
back
but
as
this whole
800,000.
scale is a million though, and it's only passed this line four times. Four times total. One of them's current, but before that, three times. That's what I'm looking at. So
Yeah.
I've only said a million because the whole graph is a million. But in
Okay,
the last
gotcha.
million years, we've only had average global temperatures go higher than wherever this zero. This is what is this 0 degrees Celsius
Hmm.
as an average. So it's been higher than 0 degrees Celsius 3 times in the last million years. And only one of those times in the last 800,000, because the graph didn't go back further, has the global carbon emissions been as high as it is now. So it stands to reason that there's at least possible for something other than a lot of carbon in the atmosphere to contribute to, yeah, contribute causally to uh, high temperatures, high
which is
global
yeah,
temperatures, right?
which is like my main point. It's like
Yeah, that's
there
fine.
may be many other reasons why this is happening, and by solely focusing on that one thing, we might be missing the entire pie. Like it's possible, and this is something that I think is a gigantic flaw in the argument.
Maybe, but not really, because like there's a whole bunch of other. So, are you are you- are you taking this to be a refutation that that the amount of
That
carbon
correlate that
dioxide in the atmosphere
is a causal. There's a causal relationship to it.
contributes to the climatological phenomena that we consider dangerous
Uh,
to the
Specifically,
survivability of our species?
yeah, it could even be some other atmospheric gas that we do not measure. Like that's the thing. There are millions of these things. We don't know which one is actually happening, and this just the fact that we have a correlation doesn't give us enough information to be like sinking trillions of dollars of resources and potentially killing millions of people. It's like that to me, and this it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like as far as like the moral implications of superseding, because there's multiple parts to it. Actually, it's not just like superseding the rights of people in the future because we know that we're going to harm them. Like we don't even know that we're going to harm them. We don't even know what we're doing is going to help. And then on top of that, we're still going to supersede their rights over the people who are alive today, who are trying to even just survive. Like I don't think people understand how hard it is just to live. It escapes them because it's so easy in places that we live. It really truly escapes them. Like that shit is not easy. And the things that have to go right in order for us to sustain what we have today, like
Mhm.
half these Muppets don't even understand it, let alone appreciate it.
um okay, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just nothing about what you've said so far undermines the idea or at least a subset of the claims that were made in the thing that I was reading, which was there's a whole bunch of overwhelming scientific evidence that increased levels of greenhouse gases affect not only the temperatures of the earth, but the climatological phenomena that we find dangerous. Like, so
Hmm.
those correlations have been established as well, right? And nothing about what you showed dispels with those correlations either. So then you'd have to explain how consistent with the correlation between increased greenhouse gases and the various different effects with the Earth's. Let me quote what they said so I can be more.
Hmm.
Many of the scientific instruments NASA uses to study our climate focus. Oh, sorry. Let me make it so.
You mind? Yeah.
Here we go. Many of the science instruments NASA uses to study our climate focus on how these gases affect the movement of infrared radiation through the atmosphere. From the measured impacts of increases in these gases, there is no question that increased greenhouse gas levels warm Earth in response. And then uh, they use
Like that's the
satellites.
thing I'm talking about.
These
Sorry.
data. Sorry, no, I'm almost done. Wait. Years patterns of climate. Oh, ice cores from Greenland, Antarctica, and tropical mountain glaciers show that the Earth's climate responds to changes in greenhouse gas levels. So that correlation, the fact that it's responding to changes in greenhouse gas levels, and this is demonstrated over shorter spans of time to make it clear that it's responding to those changes. Um, Ancient evidence can also be found in tree rings, ocean sediments, coral reefs, and layers of sedimentary rocks. This ancient or paleoclimate evidence reveals that current warming is occurring roughly 10 times faster than the average rate of warming after an ice age. Carbon dioxide from human activities is increasing about 250 times faster than it did from natural sources after the last ice age. These kinds of trends and claims are not debunked by what you pointed out. So that's why it's
Um,
really hard for me to like overturn my position
well,
based on what you're
hold on.
pointing out.
Before you move on, if we're talking about tree rings, sediment layers, and all those things, there are millions of other what's it called, and coral reefs. There are millions of other factors that can actually come into affecting the growth of a tree. Like, for example, what's it called, soil components. Whether there were a certain type of fauna that was actually feeding off of that area and producing more nutrients in the soil. There are millions of other factors that are, you can't just like be like, oh, it's only greenhouse gases that causes these sorts of factors to come about. That's
But that's
illogical.
that's not what the claim was. The claim was that
But they're
there's
saying,
evidence that
oh
can
no,
be
look,
found in these areas that 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 reveals that the current warming is occurring faster,
no, no, no,
10 times faster than the average rate of warming after an ice age.
look. But
That's that's
that's
that's
a
what that's what the claim is.
Yeah, but that sentence hinges on the one previous to it, not the one. What's it called? It says ice cores drawn from Greenland, Antarctica, and tropical mountains, glaciers show that the Earth's climate responds to changes in greenhouse. Ancient evidence
Uh,
can also be found in tree rings,
uh,
ocean sediments,
uh.
coral reefs, and layers of sediment rocks. Like, he's talking about additional evidence for the warming of the Earth and the
No, for the
actual
claim that Earth's climate responds to greenhouse gas levels.
yeah,
That's the claim.
that's what they're, yeah, warming or whatever it may be. They're the greenhouse gases,
Uh-huh.
and to say that, what's it called? Ancient evidence can also be found in tree rings, ocean sediments, and coral reefs and layers of sediment rocks. It's like it's overly simplifying the amount of much more likely not consequences, factors that would actually affect those things.
How? It's not.
Well,
It's just
you're telling me that
summarizing.
it can
It's just
only be.
summarizing different types of evidence for this claim that Earth's climate responds to changes in greenhouse gas levels.
That's what I'm
That's
saying.
how I'm reading it.
So
So you saying
the
that there's a
greenhouse
whole bunch of
gases,
other factors doesn't really like I don't understand how that's supposed to in some sense undermine this.
because there it's an attribution fallacy.
How?
It's a cause. What do you
It
mean
didn't
how?
attribute it didn't attribute
They're
it didn't
attributing
attribute the climate shifts or changes of greenhouse gas levels to ocean sediments, coral reefs, and layers. It's saying that these are indicators. These can be taken
no.
as evidence of
That's what I'm
this.
saying. They're indicators of those greenhouse gases changing the conditions in the Earth system, right?
Of the
These are
climate
evidence.
responding to the changes in greenhouse gas levels. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these sediments, these tree rings, and these ocean sediments are responding to the greenhouse gases, right?
They are indicators that the Earth's climate responds to changes in greenhouse gas levels.
By showing what they're the relationship they're showing is the increase or the decrease of greenhouse gases and the effect that it has on tree rings, sediments, and what's it called, coral reefs, right?
Based, uh, kind of.
I mean,
Um,
what else could they be talking about?
the most accurate way to put it is the way I keep putting it, which is this is claiming that there's a whole bunch of ancient indicators of a particular kind of relationship, and that is that the Earth's climate responds to changes to greenhouse gas levels. The ancient evidence among which is tree rings. So there's evidence in tree rings. There's evidence in ocean sediments. There's evidence in coral reefs, and there's evidence in layers of sedimentary rocks. And these are places where you can go back, apparently, to ancient times in some way. So, insofar as they're ancient evidence, they count as ancient evidence. They're indicators that the Earth's climate responds to changes in greenhouse gas levels going back to ancient times. Also, the ice cores have that kind of ability to be able to give those indicators in some way as well. So that's what I'm reading. That your rebuttal to that doesn't make sense to me because it saying that there's a whole bunch of possible there's million you said maybe you're being hyperbolic. You said there's millions of factors that can affect tree rings and sediments and corals. It's like, okay, but that doesn't change that doesn't that doesn't necessarily refute the fact that that
Okay,
evidence can be found in these places of an ancient of a relationship going all the way back to ancient times that between the Earth's climate and greenhouse gas levels.
oh, okay, but that's what we're talking about. Evidence of greenhouse gas levels.
No, evidence of a relationship between Earth's climate and greenhouse gas levels. So we're talking about the greenhouse gas effect, is what it's normally called, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
We're talking about how greenhouse gas levels
okay, yeah.
impact the Earth's climate. That's what we're talking about. There's a relationship
In
between at least two
so
things.
So let's focus on one like tree rings, for example.
Okay.
So the only thing that can affect the growth of tree rings is the greenhouse gas increase in the
No,
temperature.
no, that's not what this is saying, dude. That's
So
that's
then,
that's that's what
that's a
undermines your
correlating
criticism.
factor. No, but that's what I'm saying. But that's just a correlating factor based on an assumption. Like you're assuming that this is the primary factor that would cause this tree ring to develop in this way.
No, it does not assume that. All it's saying is that there is evidence that can be found in tree rings.
What
Ancient
evidence?
evidence that can be found in tree rings. I don't know because I'm not an expert.
But that's
I can
like,
look that up for you.
but then we're talking about we're arguing over what someone claimed or didn't claim. Like
But
that's not
we're
the point
arguing
here,
over what NASA scientists claim, though,
bro.
not random
Yeah,
motherfuckers that don't know shit, bro.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
can look it up for
That's
you. You want me to look up? You want me to
appeal
look
to
up the
authority
tree
is
ring
not a
evidence?
logical is really not a logical argument either.
Tree ring evidence for climate change. I can look it up for you. You could have looked this up just as
No, hold
well,
on a
bro.
second.
This
Appeal
is
to
from NASA.
authority.
Here,
No, but hold on. It's from
it's
NASA or from the president. Like, sure, we can talk about like how someone is likely to be knowledgeable, but there are other people who are as credentialed as the scientists at NASA
okay.
who
Fine.
actually
You
argue
haven't
the
cited
opposite.
any
So
one
the
of them,
appeal.
so you cite them,
I
and
actually I did.
I'll take them.
Hold on a second. Like, how about this? Oh, hold on. What's it called?
Dude. Let me read this, and then you find whatever you need to find. So here's the tree ring thing, and this might explain it. I don't know enough about it to know if this is adequate, and I can look for more stuff. But like literally, I'm doing what you could have done. You're questioning all of this stuff without understanding it. I'm
You're
only
presenting it to me.
advancing it. I'm only advancing it because it's coming from an authoritative source that I actually trust, which are NASA scientists. If you want to pretend like NASA scientists are not trustworthy on climatological phenomena, the same people that like put rockets in outer space and shit, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to
Yeah,
climatology. Okay, I guess like we can go there,
I'm
but
sure
like I don't
Fauci
mind
and the NIH
I don't mind appealing to their authoritativeness. I really don't, because I feel like they know what they're talking about. That doesn't mean that they're right in all things.
it's still not. It's still a
Hold on,
rhetorically like
let me read this, and
illogical
then you can
point.
give you your rebuttal. It's fairly logical though, because dude, what do you know? Do you know how many
Appeal
scientific
to
experts work for
authority.
NASA, bro?
That's fine. That's still an appeal to
What?
authority. You know
All
how many
right,
scientists
bro.
work for the
It is an appeal
NIH and
to
the
authority, but
CDC?
it's a
No,
legitimate one. Is
I'm
my
sorry. Hold
point.
on. How many
It is an
scientists
appeal to
work for the
authority, but
NIH,
it
the
is a
CDC, and Pfizer and Moderna? We
wait.
still
What?
got pulled along into a complete farce for like 2 years.
That's fair, but they're
Like,
politically partisan. Is NASA politically partisan? Is it NASA have some kind of
it's
political
publicly
agenda?
funded, isn't it?
It is publicly funded, but did they have a political agenda to lie about climate change? What would be the benefit of that?
What? Are you serious?
Explain that. Dead ass. What?
So
How
there,
does NASA
so
benefit
how?
from that?
Yeah. How,
Also, the
where
scientists
does
that work for
funding come from?
SpaceX, hold on, the scientific experts that work for SpaceX
Where does
don't
funding
deny
come
this
from?
either. That's a private entity.
Where do they get their funding from?
What the fuck? It's a private entity, bro. What? What are you
SpaceX
talking
is a
about?
government
SpaceX has previously been
contractor.
funded by the government, yeah, but like, and it probably still is to
It's
a
a
certain extent, but
government.
they're still a
It's
private entity, though.
who? No, I'm sorry. What
And also,
consumer
wait. Also, let's
is
just say they're
buying
government
SpaceX
funded. I'll
products?
just give that to
No,
you.
no, no, no.
So
Hold on.
what?
No, they are.
What would be okay? Fine. So what? That doesn't
Oh,
prove that
so you're gonna
their
bite the hand that feeds.
expertise in climatological phenomena is somehow
Yeah, it doesn't.
undermined
It
by their
also
public
doesn't prove
funding.
that it also isn't a point. Look, there it's still also their authority is also not a logical argument. Appeal to authority
Dude,
is a logical fallacy. Is
what
it yes
who
or
would
no?
be
Is
okay?
it yes
What
or
would
no?
be
No, I'm
I
sorry.
think it is a
Is
legitimate
appeal
appeal to
to
authority, yes, to answer your question.
it,
However, what
wait,
would be a legitimate appeal to
so wait,
authority?
hold on a second.
What would be hold on, let me ask you one question. What would be an example of a legitimate appeal to authority in your book?
I don't think there is one.
So there is no such thing as a genuine, legitimate appeal to authority on any subject matter.
Yes, because people can be wrong. Even the foremost experts in
Even
something
in the
can be wrong.
context of religion.
Absolutely.
So you can't appeal to the authority of
We
Allah
have
in
that's not
Islam.
a person.
It's not a person.
It's not a person. Is Allah a person?
Okay, I don't know. I don't believe in that, but I
Like in
thought you
Islam,
did.
for example, in Islam, for example, we have sheikhs. We have people that are interpreters of the Quran. There are people who are
Who do
scholars
you pray to?
with, to our deity,
So the question, if it
Allah.
wasn't a person, then the question, who do you pray to, wouldn't even be intelligible to you.
What?
If you did not regard Allah as a person, then the question, who do you pray to, wouldn't even be intelligible to you.
Oh my God. So we're talking about what's it called? We're talking about not a like when we're talking about a person. Are you talking about an entity or are you talking about a human being?
So I'm very familiar with religious tenets.
Hmm.
My understanding is that the followers of the three major Abrahamic faiths
Hmm.
genuinely regard their deities, their respective deities, as persons. And in fact, in some
Yeah,
traditions,
maybe in theirs, not
they
ours.
regard, and I don't know where you stand, but in some traditions, they regard the very concept of personhood that human beings are capable of instantiating as being enabled by the existence of that deity in the first place. That
But
you
that
couldn't
still
even get
doesn't.
human personhood unless you had the personhood in the form of the ultimate being of Allah, God, Yahweh, whatever. I don't know where
Yeah,
you
that's the
stand
thing.
on that, but
That's
that's
one of
why
the
I
major
asked you that because
contentions.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
investigate where you stand on
but
that.
that's one of the
If you
major
don't regard
contentions we
Allah as a
have.
person, then what
No, we don't.
kind of
We don't.
thing is Allah?
He is a deity. We don't see
He?
him.
He?
Yeah, we use pronouns, of course.
But that implies personhood, and it
Oh
implies that
my
you
God.
regard this person as a person. That's what I'm saying. Like that's weird. That's a weird way to talk
Uh,
about a non-person.
it is, but we're going to get into a theological debate here. And I'm trying to tell you, like, this is something that's actually pretty complex and very different from Christian theology and Abrahamic, what's it called? Not Abrahamic, Jewish theology. We have many differences between those two. As a matter of
Okay,
fact,
fine. I don't want to
one
get
of the
into the
biggest, no, hold on
theology.
a
The
second,
only
but one of the biggest contentions we have is for them calling, what's it called? Jesus, the Son of God. Like, that's something that we completely and utterly reject because of this concept that you're bringing
is
up.
Allah capable of loving you?
Sure.
But even the way you Okay, the only point I was trying to make, because I'm not trying to get into a theological debate, and I take you at your word that,
I actually
that
do
there
have
is an
to.
ongoing discourse within the community of Islam and Muslims about what the personhood status of Allah may even be. What the only point I'm talking about is I know that the ways that are common for actual believers of Islam to talk about Allah imply that they genuinely regard Allah to be a person. And the only reason why I brought that into here is to say that in the context of you or any other genuine believer in the Islamic faith, right, regarding Allah as an authoritative figure on all things, that could
Okay.
at the very least be an example
No,
of a
no, hold on.
legitimate appeal to authority.
I
Because
think I
any
see.
Muslim that appeals to the authority of the Quran or that's supposed to come from Allah or have a special relationship with Allah or Allah's will, like that would be I thought would be a like slam dunk example, but you're
Okay.
denying that even that counts. So I'm
No, 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 no.
baffled by that.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. And I think that I know where we're missing each other. And I'm talking about my example that I was bringing up was like the interpretations between different sheikhs, and that we don't say like, well, it's that sheikh, therefore it must be true. If it was written in the Quran, there are certain things that are like extremely point blank. There are certain things that are a little bit harder to interpret, and we actually appeal. In that case, we appeal to the hadith, which is the narration of what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what he said on the matter. Like,
Okay.
because the Quran itself mentions him as the ultimate authority and the what's it called?
Okay, but
Uh, no,
why
hold on.
why are you
Let,
justified in regarding this person or
yeah,
this tradition as
because I'm
authoritative,
talking
and I
because
can't regard
no, hold on a second.
scientific
No,
experts and
look, but
climatological
you're
experts
no,
as
you're
authoritative on
hold on.
climatology and climatological phenomena?
Having authority, which is I'm not saying that there's no such thing as authority. I'm not refuting the concept of authority. I'm refuting, and this is something that I don't think even can be argued really at this point, that authority alone is not a logical argument.
I agree with that, but I wasn't doing that.
That's my entire
That's my
point.
point. Okay,
But you just
I've
said
already
no. But you
conceded
just
that.
said no. But
I'm
you just
saying that
said
my
you
in this
trust them
instance,
because it's
because
NASA.
they're because no I not only no not just because they're NASA, but because they're NASA, they're not particularly partisan at all. Like if you can give me
That
evidence of
like
NASA being blatantly partisan and being prone to the
Are we
kinds
talking
of
about public Republicans
corruptions.
or
Hold on, being prone to the kinds of corruption that are being that the likes of Pfizer and Moderna are being accused of, which is a profit-driven kind of corruption, right? NASA's not a for-profit entity. They don't make money off of. They don't even have the ability to make money off of lying about climate change. So, like, I don't understand. Like, what would
okay?
even be the accusation when it came to NASA?
They're funding
They're publicly funded, but a
completely.
lot of entities are
Yeah,
publicly funded, and they're not corrupt necessarily. So I don't understand. That's not an argument for them not being
they're funding
reliable or
they're funding
authoritative
just
on
just
scientific
as
matters.
they're funding just as the funding that other climate scientists compete for is determined by their press releases, what they actually claim as to be scientific truth in order to justify further research. Those government grants they don't come from scientists within Congress being like, yo, those guys at NASA, they got some of the best guys. We should just give them. No, no, no. It comes from their publications and their claims that they make in order to justify more money
So
for more research.
So to be clear, you're saying that NASA is willing to lie about climate change to ensure that they get
I didn't even go
funded
that
for
far.
more research?
I
Well,
didn't
you're
even go that
implying
far.
that, dude. Come on.
No, no, no. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. No, no, no. You're superimposing that claim onto me.
Okay, then
I'm
what are you
saying
saying?
to you, no, I'm saying to you that to claim that they're simply a neutral, completely unpolitical organization, I think because they get their government funding is false.
No, I'm saying that there's nothing that's undermining or corrupting their scientific expertise. You haven't given any reason to suspect that NASA is politically or economically motivated to lie about their findings on
And
climate change.
no, hold on a
Y
second.
so
Hold
you
on a second.
questioning wait, hold on.
I'm
So
not
you're
even.
questioning their authoritativeness on this makes no sense unless you can actually demonstrate a plausible allegation that NASA is somehow not that their scientific experts are somehow
I
not
didn't make any
authoritative on this.
allegations. This
I
is
know
something
that, but
that
that's
we've
what I'm
seen
saying.
before. No, but
In
hold
the
on a second. No,
absence
no,
of
hold on a
those
second. Hold
wait.
on a second.
In the absence
There,
of those
I don't
allegations,
understand. No, no.
you're questioning their authoritativeness makes no
Yeah,
sense.
of course, because it makes no sense. We've never had a governmental agency or a scientific agency like act in a way that isn't completely truthful because of funding or actually
Of course
because
we
of
have.
any political pressure.
Of course we
So
have.
what makes NASA special?
Because NASA, there's no reason to believe that that's happening with NASA.
Oh my
It's not like it's
God.
not as if every
That's an
government.
argument
Hold
of
on, it's not. No, no, wait. So
incredulity.
wait.
No, no,
Are
no.
you arguing that every single publicly funded governmental
It's
agency
susceptible
is
to it,
inherently
yes.
corrupt because they're
It's
publicly funded?
susceptible to it, and we've seen it over
I
and over again.
no. Saying they're susceptible to it is one thing. Are they in fact corrupted or under their scientific expertise
Is that what I
undermined by
said?
that? I'm
Is that what I
asking
said?
you. I'm
No,
asking
but
you.
you're begging a question that I didn't even bring
I
up. That I
know,
didn't even bring up.
but
Yeah, but I didn't
you
bring it
haven't
up.
answered it
You're
either.
begging.
I'm gonna take
Yeah,
you. I'm gonna take that as a
you're
no. And
begging
if
the
you once you
question,
say no,
which
I
is a
don't know if
logical
that's what your
fallacy.
answer is, but once you say no, if you say no, I don't know if you do. If you say no, right, then you're conceding my point. You can't just assume or presume that because a government entity is publicly funded, right, particularly one that is scientific in nature, that their scientific findings are somehow corrupt or less liable or less likely to be true.
Again, this is a begging the question fallacy. You're imposing an actual point onto me that I never made. And my point
I'm no,
specifically, hold on a second. Hold on, no, no, hold
I'm
on, hold on, hold on.
criticizing
Hold
you
on.
for
No, no,
not
no, no, no.
even
No, no,
attempting to
hold on.
make the point you're implying, because unless you do and unless you can demonstrate it, you cannot question the authoritativeness of you have no basis on which to question the authoritativeness on the scientific matters as regards NASA and their relationship to climate change and climatological phenomena. That's what I'm saying. So you don't
Yeah.
unless you have an
See,
actual allegation you can demonstrate is plausible, you don't get to just be like, they could be wrong. Like what? Like that's a terrible,
yeah,
that's a weak
they could
argument
be
against
wrong
NASA's
is a weak
authoritativeness,
argument.
dude.
They could be wrong is a
They
weak
could be
argument.
wrong. No, it's a weak argument in terms of saying what I'm saying, NASA's saying must be false. If you're trying to establish
Yeah,
that,
and
you don't get to
guess
say
what? And
they might be
again,
wrong, therefore it's
you're
false. Like
arguing
what?
against yourself because I never made that point. And you're gonna
Okay,
rewatch
well,
this and you're gonna go
so then
back.
okay,
No, no,
so
hold on
then
a second. And let me.
I'm going
Okay,
to
yeah,
move
and
forward
I'm
with the
gonna.
authoritativeness of NASA then,
No, no, no.
because
Hold on a
you don't
second.
have any
Hold on a
reason to
second.
doubt it. You don't
No,
have
no,
any
no. Hold
real
on a
reasons to
second.
doubt it.
No, that's
Am I
not
right?
true. That's not true at all.
So then what are your reasons?
My point is the authority of anybody or any government body, any scientific body, or any persons is not a logical argument in and of itself. That is my entire point, and I've said this from the
What is
beginning that
rational is that
appeal to
the
authority.
experts in this domain
Oh my
are
god!
the
But
least likely to be in error. That's what's rational about my stance, right?
likelihood and whether or not it's actually like logically consistent are two very different things.
First of all, it is logically consistent. There's nothing illogical about any of the claims
I'm
you're
sorry.
making.
Wait. So just by the merit of who they are,
No, I'm saying
they're
the claims that they're making. Wait, I'm saying the claims that they're making, the
that's
scientific
what I'm
claims that
saying.
they're
The
making,
claims that
and
they're
the
making
evidence that they have to back it up. There's nothing
is
illogical
not.
about any of that.
No, hold on, stop. You're saying two different things. Their
No, I'm not.
authority. No, stop. Yes, you are. Their authority and the merit of their claims are
All
two
right,
different things.
I'm done having this argument because it's going nowhere. I'm
You
gonna
can
read
you
this.
can watch you
I'm
can
gonna
rewatch it, but I
I'm
never
gonna
made that
read
point.
this.
And two,
That's fine. That's
I
fine.
think
That's fine.
it's
You didn't really
perfectly
make a point,
logical.
but it's fine.
No,
I'm
I
cool. I'm
did.
cool. I'm cool with that because I
The
feel like
merit.
at this
No,
point you're
no.
just
Come
undermining my
on, dude.
ability to prove you wrong. So I'm gonna do that now.
Nah.
Hold
Come on,
on.
dude. You're
So
the merit.
so
No, hold
the
on a
tree
second.
thing,
Let me
I'm gonna
finish
do the
my.
tree
No,
thing, and then I'm gonna
hold
go
on.
back to the NASA evidence that you haven't refuted at all,
No, but
and then we're gonna go back to
evidence
the
of
main
what?
claim,
Of what claim?
which
Evidence
is
of
that
what
your
claim?
denial of climate
Oh my
change
god.
makes no sense. That's ultimately where I'm gonna go. So here's
Okay,
your tree stump
sure,
thing that
man.
you call into question. If you ever seen a tree stump, you've probably noticed that the top of a stump, a series of concentric rings. These rings can tell us how old a tree is and what the weather was like during each year of that tree's life.
Hmm.
The light colored rings represent wood that grew in the spring and early summer, while the dark rings represent wood that grew in the late summer and fall. One light ring plus one dark ring equals 1 year of the tree's life. Because trees are sensitive to local climate conditions, such as rain and temperature, they give scientists some information about the area's local climate in the past. For example, tree rings usually grow wider in warm, wet years, and they are thinner in years when it's cold and dry. If the tree has experienced stressful conditions such as a drought, the tree might hardly grow at all in those years. So you can tell by the relative thickness. This is the nature of the indicators, the ancient indicators of tree rings that they're talking about. Scientists can compare modern trees with local measurements of temperature and precipitation from the nearest weather station. The National Weather Service has been keeping weather records in the United States since 1891. But very old trees can offer clues about what the climate was like long before measurements were recorded. This field, the study of past climates, is called paleoclimatology. Okay. So they're using paleoclimatological indicators from old ass trees, right, as evidence of the
That's
relationship between
I don't even
rises
know how that how does
in
that differ
carbon
from what I
emissions
said.
and no, it doesn't. No, so you called into question the nature of the indicators, the ancient evidence, let's say, because that's what they use. That's the word they use
How
of tree
exactly did
rings
I call it into
specifically.
question?
They also have similar things that they can indicators for ocean sediments, coral reefs, sedimentary rocks. Presumably, in all of these cases, there's going to be something about any one of these aspects of nature that last for extended periods of time. Coral reefs, ocean sediments, layers of sedimentary rock. These things last for extended periods of time, and they are apparently, presumably, responsive to the wider climate or environment. That makes sense. So you could probably work backwards through the years, through the layers, through the rings, and get some kind of clues for what the weather was like and therefore what levels of greenhouse gas levels there were. That's probably the scientific logic here. Now, if you want to refute that, you can, but I just wanted for the guests to make sure that I was doing my due diligence and explaining what
Hmm.
the nature of the indicators were. I did that very thoroughly by doing a cursory Google search for tree rings. I could probably repeat that with all the other ones, but nothing about what you're pointing out or questioning is calling into question this claim. And that's kind of
Hold
the
on a
nature
second.
of what I want to get. I'm
No,
almost done.
can
I'm
you?
almost done. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Let's go back real quick to the scientific consensus thing because for some reason like that didn't stick, and I want to make sure that I get these points out because I felt deprived of the ability to do so. um so I'm going to share my screen again, and I want to show the scientific consensus one. Here we go. All right, are we there? Oh no, sorry, let me share right quick. All right, here we go. All right, so the scientific consensus: Earth's climate is warming. Okay. So this graph right here, on the graph we have, okay, so these are different sources or whatever. So temperature data showing rapid warming in the past few decades. The latest data going up to 2021. So this is just the past few decades. I wonder if there's
That's since
temperature was going
1860.
back. Yeah. No, I'm very transparent about that. I'm wondering if there's any going back because I don't know
When you
that
said
they're.
the past few decades, I was just clarifying.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just read what they have. So it's important to remember that science is always focused on evidence, not on opinion. Scientific. I don't want to be lectured about that. Scientific evidence continues to show that human activities, primarily the human burning of fossil fuels, have warmed Earth's surface and its ocean basins, which in turn have continued to impact Earth's climate. This is based on an over a century of scientific evidence forming the structural backbone of today's civilization. NASA Global Climate Change presents the state of scientific knowledge about climate change while highlighting the role NASA plays in better understanding our home planet. This effort includes citing multiple peer-reviewed studies from research groups across the world, illustrating the accuracy and consistency of research results. In this case, the scientific consensus on climate change consistent with NASA's scientific research portfolio. That said, multiple studies published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. Here are some of them right here. Show that climate warming trends over the past century are extremely likely due to human activities. Okay, so it's extremely likely due to human activities. I want to note how softened that is. All of the
Likely.
evidence that they're citing suggests that it is. This is an acknowledgement tacitly that scientists could be wrong about their claims and the predictions that they're making. And I think any good scientist worth their weight would acknowledge that. So I want to emphasize that because you were making it seem like I wasn't willing to acknowledge that earlier. And
No,
then in addition,
that's not
most
what
of
I
the
was talking
leading,
about.
you were making it seem, so maybe that's not what you intended, but that's what it felt like.
I was talking about
In addition, most of the leading scientific organizations worldwide have issued public statements endorsing this position. The following is a partial list of these organizations, along with links to their published statements and a selection of related resources. So if you want to go through and debunk all of these reputable scientific institutions and organizations because appeal to authority is illogical or some shit, and you want to debunk their claims,
So wait, I'm
feel,
sorry.
feel, feel free to do that. But like, you
Sure.
haven't done that yet for sure. And until you
Okay.
do, you don't really have a basis to argue against this.
Okay.
All you're really
Let
saying is
me let
it's
me
possible in some possible world, I guess, that this
yeah.
could be wrong. Therefore, we should just disregard it as not being wrong, right? Like what? Like that's a
Yeah.
terrible argument. That's a very weak argument.
No. There are actually basic rhetorical rules that we're completely ignoring right now, and one of them being appeal to authority, which completely disregards the fact that the merit of your argument is what like
But
actually causes logic.
I'm
No,
not
no, stop. Hold
merely
on. No, no,
appealing
hold on.
to authority.
Stop.
Oh wait,
No, let
hold
me
on. I'm not
finish.
gonna
Let
let
me
you
finish.
misquote me. I'm not
Hold
appealing
on.
to authority for its own sake. I'm appealing
No,
to the
hold on
authority
a
of
second.
NASA because hold on. I'm appealing to the authority of NASA for very specific reasons, which I was very, very clear about. Right. I'm
Which
appealing to the
is
authority of NASA because they haven't demonstrated any liability or likelihood to be partisan in any way, to
still
have
not
any
merit.
of the negative economic incentives to lie,
Still
and
not logical
their
merit.
and the expertise of their scientists is well documented, and
Still not
all of the
logical
things that
merit.
they're actually claiming, their scientists are claiming, have been backed up by all kinds of independent institutions that don't have any ties
That's a
to the
claim.
government funds that NASA has. They're not, a lot of these institutions aren't even government funded. So I don't understand where is the
Wait.
argument in the
Which
other
one of
direction?
these are not government funded?
Dude, do I have to go? You want me to go show you? Like
No,
I was
I
literally
dare you to
scrolling
find
through
one
them.
that's not government funded. Like they all get scientific grants from from governments wherever they are. I like what market is there for that research science
So there's no such thing as privately funded scientific institutions, really?
on climate change?
On any scientific topic, really?
Fine, fine. No, no, no. Oh, there are definitely, and there's a
Okay,
market
well then what do you?
for those things.
Okay, then I don't know what you're
who's
saying
the
anymore.
okay?
So I don't know if these specific
There's hold
entities
on a
right here that
second.
I'm scrolling through. I don't know that they're government, whether
Those
they're
are
government funded or not. Some of them are
more
government
likely than not.
entities, U.S.
More
government
likely than
agencies. So
not, they're
these are
either
government funded.
government, either they're
I don't know
what's it
if the
called?
American Association for the Advancement of Science is government funded. It sounds like it is. American Chemical Society, American Geophysical Union, American Medical Association, I think is government funded. American Meteorological Society, American Physical Society, the Geological Society of America. It seems like because America's in the title, they're probably government funded. I don't care though, because that doesn't mean that they're wrong. But whatever.
Okay.
Like if you're looking for a non-government
Again,
funded entity
again,
to
again,
establish
you
that
keep putting words in
the
my mouth.
reputability of the organization, that is a
Okay.
logical fallacy in and of
Okay.
itself. Just
First of
just to
all,
just to point
no,
that out.
no, 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 no. Hold on a second. First of all, there it is. They don't have to have anything wrong, and you keep doing this. Where like you're putting these words in my mouth, and you're begging a question that I never asked. That's a logical fallacy. I'm not even. You're saying I'm implying it. No, you're superimposing it onto my argument. That's not an implication because I'm not. I'm making explicit claims here, and my explicit claim is that the very mere fact that this is NASA, that they have thousands of scientists, that they're publicly funded, that they have some of the best scientists in the world, that they have no evidence of having been what's it called, like corrupt in the past, is still not merit of the actual evidence, the reasoning behind it, and the evidence presented. It's not the same thing. It's merit, not authority, that comprises a logical argument. That is not even
But
something we can
that's
argue.
that okay, but that's what
Two,
I'm saying. The
no,
reason
hold on a
why I
second.
appeal to
Hold
their
on, no, no.
authority
But
is
let
in
me finish. Let
virtue
me
of
finish.
the merit of the organization in scientific matters
But
concerning the climate.
then
That's my
appeal
point.
to the merit. Don't
That's
appeal to their
literally what I've been doing
authority.
this entire
That's
time. I've been reading all of
not.
their claims. What are you talking about? Like that's exactly
No,
what I've
no,
been
hold
doing
on.
this whole
Stop.
time.
Stop. 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 And two, another thing is that you're telling me, you're essentially implying that the burden of proof is on me to refute this. It's not. The
How is it
burden of
not?
proof. Who does the burden of proof lie on?
The person who's making the claim.
And who's making the claim that climate change is caused by
The
human
scientists
beings?
that have provided a plethora or a preponderance of evidence that you can't refute. So
Oh, I'm
you're
sorry.
claiming that they're wrong, and
Yeah.
you're not presenting any counter evidence at all. So the
So
burden of
so
proof
you're
is on
telling
you.
me that because no, that's not, it's the
They've
posit they
they've
posited the claim that this is
and
real.
they provided evidence for it. Lots
Okay.
of evidence, a
And that
preponderance of
and that
evidence that you
evidence and
haven't
that evidence
refuted at
no, no,
all.
no. I'm
You haven't even
sorry.
tried to. You
No,
haven't
bro.
even
No,
cited
no,
one single
that's
study.
not true.
You
That's
haven't
not true,
cited
dude.
anything. I've been citing things this entire time. You haven't cited a
Oh, okay.
single
Guess
study
what? Guess
that,
what?
that contradicts or
But
contravenes
do you
any of the
understand
findings
how
of
that
NASA
works?
or
Like,
any of
do you
these other
understand how
scientific
no, 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 I'm
entities.
sorry. The burden of proof is on them. Therefore, they have to provide the evidence. I don't
They
have to
have already
oh, okay.
centuries worth of evidence. Like
Oh my
what?
God. So
Like we
hold on a
went
second.
over
Hold
it
on, hold on.
together,
No,
bro.
no, hold on. Stop. We went over what their claims were, and we're talking about the warming of the globe, and it's been happening without the actual mechanism that they're describing.
That
So that's
dude. But
no. I'm
you
sorry.
only honed in and cherry picked one facet or
Cherry
one
pick.
domain of data, and you didn't look at any of the
I'm
other data
sorry.
that I
Hold
went
on
over.
a
You didn't
second.
look.
Hold on a
You
second.
didn't even
No,
know
no,
about
no,
the
no.
tree rings until I explained it. You
Yes, I
didn't know about
did.
the
What are you
coral reefs
talking about?
evidence.
It
You didn't
literally
know
no,
about.
no, no.
Okay, so
Yes, I
then
did.
refute all
As a
of
matter of
those. You
fact,
haven't
yes, I
refuted
did.
any of that evidence at all.
Dude, you literally cut me off while I was talking about it earlier.
You have the floor. I have to go soon, but you have
Thank
the
you.
floor. Go ahead.
I do too. The what's it called? The tree ring thing. We're talking about, and they even cited it. There are several different reasons why the tree rings grow wider or more narrow, including droughts, including temperature, including rainfall, including, and they didn't even mention this, but soil quality also has a lot to do with it. And soil quality does change depending on whether or
Those are
not
all impacted by the
there have been
climate,
fires.
which is why that's the link to
Weather,
the climate.
weather,
The weather is a part of the
not
climate.
climate.
The weather is a part of the
Yo,
climate.
we went over this
By your
already, bro.
own definition earlier, you define the relationship between weather and climate as like
What do
successive
you
trends of weather patterns, bro.
over
And
the
that's what the
course
climate consists of
over
for
the
you.
course of like thousands of years?
Right, which is exactly the context that they're
So okay,
these
you're telling
trees
me,
are old as shit, bro. That's why they chose the trees. That's
oh
why,
my
because these
god,
trees have been around for that long, bruh.
what? No, no,
That's
I'm
why
sorry.
they're
Which
important.
trees?
These old ass, so the ancient times that they're talking about, they're
You
talking about
know,
tree rings of trees that have been here for thousands of years, bro. What are you talking about?
bro. What?
Like
Actually,
like
a lot of those are not just.
paleoclimatology is about,
Yeah, I know,
dude. I
but
just
those are
read what it's
fossils
about,
of
and
the.
so
Oh my
do
god.
you think that they only use trees that are only like 10 years old to indicate these things?
Why would I? Why
Like
would I
how
say
old
that?
do you think the trees are that they use?
First off, I'm pretty sure all the trees that they're using are not even alive anymore. Actually,
Fair enough, but they've been around Like they come from
Like
those
a lot
time
of them are
periods. Is my
like
point.
petrified.
So
And
in that sense, they're that
sure.
old. Like they're not. They may be dead now, but what I'm saying is their origins are from that long ago, right?
Okay. All
So
right,
that's what I'm saying. That's
but
why
the
that's
time.
why they count as ancient evidence.
Okay, but each ring is happening during a single year, isn't it? Each two rings
Yes.
is a single year. So
Yes.
the actual factor for all those pairs, the individual pairs, is a singular year of weather.
Yes, which is a part of the climate.
Okay, so they're measuring the distances between those rings and the next one, and then they're
Yes.
using the individual what's it called like spaces and collecting them in total to see like evolving patterns, right?
Uh huh.
You're not looking at a climate if you're looking at two rings. You're looking at weather, and you're looking at other what's it called like even if you look at 100 of those rings, that's 100 years. Like that's not even climate. That's we're still talking about the scale of weather. And we're talking about like environmental factors that go along with that, including soil quality, which are affected by the fauna around them and are affected by the types of fires that happen around them as well.
Uh huh.
These are all other factors that come along and affect these findings, just as there are other factors that affect the what's it called uh,
But you're just
and
individuating facets of the
no,
climate, bro.
no, I'm not. And as a matter of fact, the language that they use, like it gives them clues. It's not a definitive science, as a matter of fact. It gives them clues that they can actually derive assumptions off of. And if your assumptions are
That's
wrong,
how science works.
then
That's how science
but
works.
yeah, that's my
And it's
entire
always been the
point.
case that if your scientific
Yeah,
assumptions are wrong, then your theories are probably going to be in error. That's obviously true.
yeah,
That's a tautological statement.
but that's
What?
exactly that's ex- well, it's obviously that it may not be that obvious if I have to make it because I'm literally making this argument to tell you like, yo, like there are other factors that go along with it, and to assume to make the assumptions that the primary factors and the only factors are these sorts of what's it called levels of carbon dioxide in the air at the time is it's a limited set of assumptions of which there can be many, many, many more, which may have a bigger impact on it than that. It's like we're talking about
Dude,
how much
none of the
carbon
factors
dioxide
that
was.
you're
You just said
saying could
no,
have
but
an
what did they
extra
list?
impact on the rings
What did
are
they say?
non-climate based factors. That's weird. That's a weird argument,
So
dude. The whole point the whole
rainfall,
yes, rainfall is a part of the climate, bro. What are you
rainfall
talking
over the
about?
course of thousands of years is climate,
Is
not
it,
rainfall within a year.
dude,
Oh
rainfall
my god,
within any given year is going to be a part of rainfall trends over longer periods of time, bruh.
that's why we
Is it
have the word
not?
weather, and weather and climate are not the
Dude,
same thing,
dude, obviously, weather and climate are not the same
bro.
thing. We
Oh my
agree on
god.
that. My point is that the weather patterns over extended periods of time is relevant to the question of climatological phenomena generally. And if you're trying to use as indicators of ancient weather patterns and weather trends, the rings of trees that come from those time periods, because those kinds of things affect those rings, that's a completely legitimate scientific exercise. Like you're acting like
Hold
this
on
is
a second.
bad
No, no, hold on a
science or
second.
something, dude.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the conclusions that you derive from it depend entirely on the
No, all
validity
we're
of your
saying is that
assumptions.
these indicators serve as evidence
Then
that
we're not talking about
there's
the
been
same
that when with the rises of greenhouse
evidence,
gases that affects climate. That's
and
what the
that's what
claim
I'm,
is,
and
and nothing
that's
that
the
you're
entire
saying
point.
is debunking or undermining that at all.
Oh
Like
well,
at
yeah,
all.
because
Like all
you're
you're doing
fully
is
bought into this fake
individuating
claim.
climatological factors
No,
and saying
no,
and
no, no.
acting
Hold
like
on a
they're not a
second.
part of the
No,
climate.
hold on.
Like what? Like the weather is a part of the climate. Like how much
So
rainfall there is in a
I'm
given
sorry.
time period is a part of the climate too.
The
What?
fauna present in that area during that time is a part of
Is
the weather
impacted
and the
by the
climate.
climate too, bruh. How do you think the fauna gets anywhere?
Oh my god.
If not by the weather, how does it get? How does how,
So you're
what
telling me that you
causes
can
fauna to
predict.
be
No,
one
no,
place rather than
hold on.
another place?
Hold on. You can predict the specific fauna that was in those. Because look, each one of those
No,
years.
I
No,
didn't
no,
say
no.
that.
Okay, but exactly my point. Like that's one factor. That's one just one factor. that you cannot predict with weather or climate. Which, by the way, you're using an indicator, which is those two tree rings, as what happened that year, right?
Okay, what is the relationship between fauna and the tree rings and the width of tree rings?
So, do you understand the reciprocal, what's it called, relationship between fauna and flora in the enrichment of soil? Like, do you
Yes.
know what
What?
monoculture does? Do you know what
Yes, yes,
monoculture does
yes.
to a
But
soil?
what does that have
It
to?
completely.
Yes, but
So
okay, but how?
the presence of fauna directly affects the ability of vegetation to continue sustained growth in an area.
Right, and a whole bunch of other things do
And
too that are part of the climate, like sunlight and rainfall, and right,
but
right.
yeah, a whole
Okay,
bunch of other things that
okay, but
have
that's all a part
some
of
of
the
them.
climatological phenomena that is in question, right?
Yo, dude,
It's a part of
and
the environment, bro.
no,
Like,
no, 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 no. But you're. I don't think you're understanding that you're making assumptions ahead of what this thing can actually tell you. Like, you're talking about a climate within a single year. Like, climate is not. It can't be measured in a single year by definition.
first of all, yes, it can, but secondly, it's
No,
not
it
just
can't.
1 year.
No, it's
It's
not.
it's it's
Yo,
several years
by
worth of rings.
definition.
Hold on,
No,
it's
no.
several
Hold on a
years
second.
worth of
Hold on a
rings.
second.
The
Hold
individual
on a second.
unit of time that we're measuring in
No, I
using the
get
rings
you.
is
But
1 year.
even in
But there's hold on, there's
even
never one
five
tree with.
years
Hold
is
on,
too short of a
trees are not
period.
consistent of one ring though. They always
Okay,
have a whole bunch of rings,
I
and so
understand that.
all those rings are years, right? And
Yes.
what we're
Uh-huh.
and so the reason why they're so useful is because you're never every time you're dealing with a tree like this, you're never dealing with 1 year. You're dealing with a lot of years.
I'm not talking about that. Like,
Then I don't
you're
I
missing
don't know
my
why
point
you're honing in
entirely.
on.
No, because no, you're missing
Why are
my
you
point
isolating one ring out of like?
because if we're gonna talk about climate, we're gonna
Mhm.
like we have to say, like, okay, it's the entirety of of the tree rings. Like, if this
Yes,
tree was around for 4,000 years, right?
yes, yes,
That's
yes.
a climate.
That's that's dude. But it's not one. First of all, they don't. Do you think that they just pick one tree and do these, or do they do
No,
like a
I don't
lot
know
of
why you
different trees
keep
from a lot
asking
of
me these
different places
questions. I
on the
don't know why you
planet?
keep asking me these questions. Like, my thinking about this is that simple. The point of
I
it
don't know the
is,
point you're making. I don't
no,
understand the point you're making.
I
How
get
is
that,
any of this
but you know that my
refuting this? Is
reasoning
an
is nowhere near that simple, and like
okay. Then
that's
just
actually not even
in
a
plain
useful question.
language to be
But
charitable, in plain language, what is the point that you're making about
the point that
these
I'm making,
about using tree rings as
is
indicators as evidence for climate change? Like, how is it
the
not good
point
evidence
is, the, okay, it's not that it's not good evidence. It's good evidence for what is what I'm saying.
for climate
It's
change?
like, that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's like, look, if you're gonna talk about, no, not climate change. It's not just climate change. The climate changes. We know that,
Okay, fair
and
enough, fair enough.
we're talking,
It's
no, no.
evidence.
We're
Let me
talking
specify.
about
It's evidence
carbon
for the
dioxide.
relationship between. Hold on. It's evidence
Carbon di-
specifically. No, the claim that NASA made on the slide that I showed is that it's evidence specifically for a relationship between two things: the rising of greenhouse gases and the impact that has on the climate
Okay,
over time.
so greenhouse gases
Yes,
being the primary cause for the fluctuation in these conditions is
yes.
what I'm talking about. It's not good
Yes.
evidence for greenhouse gases alone being the primary factor, because there are so many other factors that are going along with it that aren't
No,
simply
nobody
caused
said greenhouse
by.
gases alone, though. It's that
I
greenhouse,
said
dude.
primary factor.
Are you just
Okay,
denying
primary
the greenhouse
factor.
gas effect? Are you denying the greenhouse gas effect? Are you saying that there is no such thing as the
But I
greenhouse
said
gas effect?
primary factor, didn't I?
Yes, yes,
I did, right?
yes, yes,
So,
yes, yes,
does that mean
yes.
it's only greenhouse gases?
You said only though. You said solely and only. You use
Okay,
those
and I
terms.
corrected myself. I said primary.
Okay, fine. So yes, it is it's one of the biggest factors that contributes to
Okay.
climate change, bro.
Okay. So, exactly. So we're talking about, what's it called?
Yes, it's a primary factor. It isn't the only one, but it's a huge one. It's one of the biggest ones.
as a matter of fact, it's like, look, um, and we talked about this earlier, and it seems like you don't see any issues with that. Is that the actual effect that greenhouse gases have on the temperature, on the global average temperature in the world? Like, that it's not commensurate with the actual claims that are being made, which is, for example, that the levels, and this is your chart, by the way, I'm using your chart, you presented this evidence to me, right?
Yeah,
That from the 1950s on, we have had an unprecedented, an incredible spike
I got
in carbon, in greenhouse gases, right?
yeah.
and that's unique for the past 800,000 years, right?
Yes,
And greenhouse gases are the primary factor that drive these mechanisms, right?
they're one of the biggest factors. Yes,
So wouldn't we see an exacerbated effect in those other factors that we're
yeah, it stands
talking
to
about?
reason. Yeah, it stands to reason that we would
So why is it
in
that the
climatological
global average
phenomena, not
temperature?
just average global temperature. So I want to make
Okay,
that clear.
and as a matter of fact, I can pull up some other stuff about it coming directly from the IPCC, saying like things like like hurricanes are less
Okay,
common
you
now
have
than they were
literally
before.
2 more minutes because I really have to go.
Sure, but my point is, if we are to take that as the primary factor, we there are things that we expect to happen as if it is a causal relationship between them, and
Yes,
that
but it's a
causal
complex
relationship.
causal relationship.
Yeah, you calling it complex doesn't mean then how do you
Dude,
measure it?
weather is so fucking complex,
Oh
and
my,
weather
no, hold
over
on, stop,
thousands of
hold on,
years is
stop,
even more
stop, stop,
complex.
stop, stop, stop,
Why are
stop.
we
But
acting
we're
like?
but
Why are we acting
no,
like
hold
we're
on.
like? Why are we acting like what
No,
I'm
hold
saying
on,
is
hold on,
far
hold on a
fetched?
second. Hold on a second. Do they actually not claim that a 2-degree increase in global temperature will cause a whole host of devastating effects on the weather?
I'm sure some scientists have said something like that.
That is actually a pretty common claim
Okay, fine.
among
Okay, fine.
even I
And
believe it
one of the
actually came
reasons
from
why
the
that's true, to
IPCC.
whatever extent it is true, is because of the complexity that I'm talking about, bro. Like that's my
Okay, no,
point.
hold on a second. No, hold on. We're not the complexity between weather and what's it called and the global change in temperature is not the same thing as the
Climatological
no,
phenomena
hold
goes
on, hold on, hold on.
beyond just weather.
Oh
It
my god.
encompasses rising sea levels, things like that,
Yes,
melting polar
yes,
ice caps.
yes. And the polar ice caps, do they melt
These
because
in
it gets
these in
colder?
no,
They melt
no.
because it gets
They melt
warmer, right?
because it gets warmer.
Yeah, yeah. So temperature.
Particularly the temperature, not just of the atmosphere, but particularly the temperature of the oceans,
Yeah, and the
right?
temperature of the oceans is affected by what?
Is affected by the sun, the solar radiation, how much of the heat is trapped by greenhouse gases, etc. The greenhouse gas effect, all of that.
Yeah,
That's what we're
so
talking about.
okay. So then you're saying that carbon dioxide, which only traps the energy of the sun,
Greenhouse gases, but yes, carbon dioxide is one of the biggest ones. Yeah,
one of the biggest ones, sure. So that's causing the temperature of the
it's
actual oceans.
contributing in a major way. Yeah,
So what are the other
that's
contributing
the
factors?
greenhouse gas effect. Well, like for example, if you anything that produces CO2 is going to contribute to this, right? So if you have if you plant a whole
No,
bunch
no,
of
no, no, no,
trees.
no. The temperature of the oceans and the atmosphere. What are the other
Yeah,
contributing
but what I'm
factors?
saying is all of this stuff is interacting though. It's not
Interacting
isolated
in what way?
in
You keep
dynamic
using
ways.
no, but
So
you're
for
using
example, like you
super
have
vague,
okay, so
like you're
no, I'm
using really,
trying,
really
yeah,
vague
because I'm
language.
speaking about planetary wide climatological phenomena.
Yeah, but
I
that's
can't
not
not
that.
speak in generalities, bro. Like what?
No, no, you can talk. You can talk a lot more specifically about that. Like
I'm
it's
trying
vague to
to
the
though.
point where it doesn't even mean anything.
No, but I'm trying to. So what I'm saying is like there's a lot of fucking dude. Oh my god! Like first of all, I'm not an expert, so I'm trying to like make sure I don't say the wrong
Sure,
thing.
that's
But
fine, but
secondly,
you're
if, for
backing claims that
example,
you're not able to
for
actually
example,
articulate.
I know for a fact that there are various different types of vegetation, including but not limited to trees, that actually absorb CO2 and produce oxygen, right? The more trees you have planted, presumably, or vegetation that does that, presumably on the planet, right? Then that can presumably offset at least some of the greenhouse gas effects that we're talking about, insofar as that CO2 is no longer in the atmosphere because it's being absorbed by vegetation. I don't have an expert level understanding of how big of a role or factor that plays. I don't know what the trends in deforestation are. I don't know I know that forest fires,
According to
when you
NASA,
burn a lot of the
the Earth is
vegetation, that
greener
creates
now
CO2.
than
I don't
it's
know
been
how
in the
many
last couple
factories we
hundred
have
years.
now versus factories we've had decades ago. Like all of these kinds of things are going to contribute to the levels of CO2 in our atmosphere, right? How fast they're
But
being
that's not what I asked
produced.
you though.
No, but what I'm saying is I'm trying to illustrate the like level of complexity. This is just one facet of it that impacts CO2 levels, right? And like,
No,
and
no,
so you're
but
just
I'm not
saying
even
it's just
talking about
weather.
CO2
Hold on, you
levels.
saying it's just
I'm
weather.
not even
It's
talking
not
about
taking
CO2
into
levels.
account. Hold on, you saying it's just weather. It's not taking into account all of these kinds of things that I'm talking about because a lot of that
But
stuff is not just
that's
weather,
not what I'm talking about. I asked you
dude. What?
what else contributes to the temperature of the
All of
Earth
these things
and
are going to
to
contribute to the greenhouse gas effect trends that I'm
oh
talking
my
about, which
god.
contributes to
No, hold on,
hold on, which
You
impacts the global average temperatures of the planet, bruh. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But it's
so the
complicated. It ain't
greenhouse gases.
The greenhouse gases, yes, are one facet of a huge dynamic planetary-wide system that gives
So
rise to general trends all over the planet over extended periods of time, bro. Like,
okay.
that's
So
how do you
no,
how more
because
nuanced do you want me to be than that?
well, you're not being very nuanced at all, actually. And I
Okay,
keep
what
asking you the
nuance am
same
I missing?
question,
What
and I
nuance
keep
am I
asking you
missing?
this question, and you keep dodging it.
I'm
If
not trying to
the
dodge
primary,
anything.
no, hold on, the greenhouse gases
Mhm,
are one of the main factors in
mhm.
increasing the temperature.
In a complex
The
system, yes.
greenhouse gases,
Yes.
right?
The greenhouse gas
What
effect,
else?
the greenhouse gases and the greenhouse gas effect that they produce
Yes.
in the
What
atmosphere. Okay.
else contributes to the warming of the temperature of the Earth?
The sun, solar radiation, that's where the
Okay,
heat comes from, and it gets
and
trapped in the
it's
planet.
trapped. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, but that's the
Yeah.
greenhouse gas effect.
Yes.
What else?
What else other than that contributes to the greenhouse gas effect?
No, to the rise in global temperature.
I don't know. What do you mean? What else? Like, I'm the greenhouse gas effect is. I'm talking in generalities again, and I'm talking about. So there's
So
general
what
trends
else is
about.
there? But you
I
said
don't
you
know.
said
I don't.
you
I
said it's
don't.
one of many.
Other than,
You said it's one of many.
that affect the climate. That's what I was talking about.
So what else could it affect? What are we talking about here?
What? Oh my god, bro. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
no,
I'm
because
saying.
you're telling
I'm
me
saying there are a whole bunch
no,
of things that
I'm
affect climate that go beyond weather. That's what I'm saying.
I never
Right.
even said the weather affects climate.
Okay.
That's not
Well,
even a
then
claim
I
that I
don't know
made.
what you're asking, man.
I
I'm trying my best
what
to answer you, but I don't know what you're
you
asking.
said the temperature rises because
Yes.
of greenhouse gases.
The greenhouse gas effect. Yes.
Is there any other reason why the temperature would rise despite the greenhouse gases?
Well, the temperature is not going to rise everywhere all at once, though.
No,
It's more
no,
complicated than that.
but hold on a
But
second. Hold
temperature
on a second,
rising
dude.
in general, like
This
general trends in temperature rising,
and
is going
I'm
is something correlated with the greenhouse gas effect,
yes,
from my
but
understanding.
we're talking about the average global temperature, which is not a metric that I made up. It's a metric that they use and that they
Okay,
actually
fine. I don't even know that
exactly.
it. I don't even know that it's true that the average global temperature rises with increased carbon emissions anymore. I know that there are
So
certain
wait a
places on the
minute.
planet where it does, and I know there are certain places on the planet where it doesn't. But I don't know how that
No,
impacts the
no,
average
but
global temperature.
uh, the okay. So then, what causes the average global temperature to go up?
In general, it would be any. Well, I don't know enough about any other things that could possibly contribute to warming the planet,
It
global
would
warming,
kind
or
of
rising
behoove
temperatures
you to
other
know
than.
that if you're gonna make a claim that this is what's actually the mechanism
But
for it.
I'm not an expert though.
Yeah, but you're still making a
I'm relying
truth
on the
claim.
experts and I'm citing
That's
them, and I actually
fine.
cited them.
That's
Okay,
fine. But
well then,
that still
why
is
are you
not
why
enough.
are you questioning me and acting
I'm
like because
questioning
I
you
can't
because you're
answer, the
making a
experts
claim.
can't answer you?
Oh my God! No, 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 no. Hold on a second. No, 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 no. This is not what we're
Why,
gonna do.
wait, hold on.
Because
Hold on. So
no, no, no,
because
no, no,
I
no,
am
no,
not an expert and I can't answer the
no,
question,
no. That's not the
therefore
point.
there is no
That's not the
answer,
point. That's not the point.
then what is the point?
That's not
I
the
really
point.
got to go, dude.
Sure. And we can pick this up some other time. But you're making a truth claim based on something that you believe in faith, not because you
No, no,
understand
no,
the
no, no,
actual
no.
mechanism.
I defer to
No,
experts.
it is.
That's not a
You
faith based
it
thing.
is. It
I defer
is.
to
You
scientific
defer what?
experts.
You
I
defer what?
defer to
You
the
defer the
expertise of
understanding of it.
climatologists
You
who I
defer the
know for a
understanding.
fact, hold on, who I
No, you
know
don't.
for a fact
No, you don't.
understand this phenomena better than me. Yes, I do. What?
No, you don't. Oh well. Oh, they
How
understand it
do
better
I
than
not
you.
know that?
Okay.
What
Okay.
what
So
is
you're
preventing
deferring.
me
So
from
you're so
not from
no. So
that
you're
knowledge?
so okay. So I thought you were saying something else. You are deferring understanding onto them, right?
No, I'm
You're
deferring to
deferring
their
understand.
expertise in terms of the
Yes,
authoritativeness of the
which is their
claims that they're
understand,
making
which is their
and their hold on
understanding.
and their relative knowledge by comparison to mine, my lack thereof, of the relevant phenomenon that in question.
So
I'm
you
deferring to them,
believe they're
which
right.
is a rational thing to do because I know that I
That's
exist in a
fine.
society.
I don't know
Hold on,
about
I know I
rational. It's
exist in a
definitely
society
reasonable.
where people know things that I don't know, and so the
Sure,
people
and
who are going to be
it's
expert
reasonable. I don't know about
climatologists are going to
rational
be. Hold on,
necessarily.
wait. It's reasonable to put to trust in the expert claims of
Yeah, trust is a
experts in
belief.
any domain. Hold on.
Again,
It doesn't mean
but
that. Hold on, wait.
it's a
It
faith
doesn't mean.
claim
Hold on, wait. It
by
doesn't mean that. It
definition.
doesn't mean that they're infallible because that's really the only point you're really trying to make.
Yeah, but you.
But hold on, but wait. They're less likely to be wrong than you are because you ain't an expert either. So like,
That's fine.
why are you
But
acting
we're
like?
still
Why are
talking
you
about
acting like that's
likelihood.
an unreasonable position? Why are you acting like that's
Uh,
an unreasonable position?
because that's the thing. Their likelihood to be wrong based on like a claim that they're making actually we're actually as a matter of fact I'll even take that back. They're likely their likelihood to be wrong about this is based on not just what what they've claimed or what their expertise is, but it's also based on certain things, like, for example, whether or not the assumptions that they've made in the research before
Of
it even
course,
started,
of course. I've already
whether or
admitted
not
this.
those things are right or wrong.
Of course, I already admitted this. I already
But
admitted this.
so it's like, if I
But they're
come into
experts,
question,
though, bro.
oh my
You're
god,
not
that's fine.
acknowledging their
Yeah, there were
expertise.
plenty of experts who would prescribe cigarettes as medicine.
Okay, fine.
That's
But
great.
I
Be an
acknowledge
expert,
the
whatever.
fallibility of experts.
Exactly. That's
I'm saying
why
that
appeal
expert
to authority
climatologists,
is not a logical argument.
but it is reasonable. My
Oh
position is
my god.
reasonable because they are less likely to
It's
be
it,
wrong than the layperson like you. So
yeah.
you
So
with
then you're
no
gambling.
scientific
But
expertise, with
but
no
then
with no scientific evidence,
ad hominem.
with no, this is not ad hominem. This is not,
Yes, it is.
I'm not insulting you. I'm saying you don't have any expertise.
No, but
This is
the
a fact.
merit, the
You
no,
don't
no,
have,
no,
hold on,
no.
wait.
The
No, I'm
merit
evaluating.
of my
I'm
points has nothing to
evaluating.
do with
Hold
that.
on. I'm evaluating the merit of your position in light of these facts. You don't have any scientific
The
expertise,
merit of
which
my
is an indicator
positions
that you're less
is
likely to be able to take into account
okay.
all of the relevant
Okay.
information you need to. You don't have any scientific evidence backing up or debunking any of the evidence I presented from the
Yeah,
experts.
that's not how that
So
works. You
wait,
don't
hold on,
no no no
wait.
no no
So
no.
in
Hold on
virtue
a
of those
second.
three facts, in virtue of those two facts, right? It stands to reason that you're more likely to be in error with respect to your evaluation of the merit of the scientific claims in question than the people who actually do this for a living, for real, who actually conducted the experiments, who actually have way higher of a likelihood to understand the nature of these experiments than either of us do. That's a reasonable position. You're
Okay,
making it sound as though that's
so
not a
this
reasonable position
no no no.
because a
I'm
person
not I'm
can
not.
because a person can possibly appeal to authority for authority's sake, which I'm not doing, and just
It's not
because
for
in virtue of
authority's
that
sake. It is as
abstract
a logical
possibility,
argument, and
therefore
that's what
I'm
you're doing.
wrong and the scientists are wrong on climate change, that's a weak
That's
argument, dude.
again. I don't know whose argument that is. It ain't mine.
Then what is your argument? State it
Uh,
simply, because I
oh,
gotta go.
okay. Point is, the merit of their claims solely lies on the actual validity of the science, not the actual person who is coming from. It could be coming from a homeless guy down the street.
How on a
Whether or
scale of
not you
one
take him serious.
on
Hold
a
on a
scale
second.
of 1 to 10, how good do you think you are? How capable do you think you are? 10 meaning you're really you're like amazing at it. 1 meaning you're not capable at all. How capable do you think you are of evaluating the merit of the scientific claims in question?
That's hard to say. It is.
All right, I would evaluate myself at about a 5 or 6 tops. I don't think you're going to be higher than that, and so it
I doubt
stands
it.
to reason that a scientific expert and a
Yeah,
climatologist would be way
here
higher on that scale, right?
but that's the thing, dude. You're saying that based on things that you don't quite understand and that you believe to be true based on the fact that it came from a certain
Because I'm
person.
deferring to experts who do understand.
Exactly,
That's the
but
point.
it's your
They
faith in
do understand.
someone else. Okay,
It's not
sure.
blind faith, dude.
So
This is a
it's
reasonable thing to do.
did I
Is to
say
defer to
blind faith?
people who
No, no.
know
Did I
more
say
than
blind
you.
faith? No, no. Hold on. Did I say
You
blind faith?
did say that. You
I said
literally
blind
said it's
faith.
because
No,
of your.
no.
Yes,
Stop.
you just
I
said
said blind
it's
faith.
because. Yes, you just said it's because
Blind
of your
faith.
faith.
The
You
word
okay?
blind came out of
Fine.
my mouth.
Whatever. You didn't say
No, that's
blind.
not true.
Okay,
That's
fine.
simply
You
not
said
true.
faith though. You said
Yeah,
faith though.
it is faith.
Okay, you're using that word in a way that suggests that what I'm doing is blindly just throwing it to the wind, just be
No,
like
you're
just fucking
imposing that onto my
soothsayer,
argument.
fucking I don't
That's
know,
not true.
like a tarot reading,
Tell
like these
me what
motherfuckers
I
are
think.
fucking these are
But
expert
but
climatologists, bro. These are expert climatologists,
Tell me what I think, please.
dude. I'm saying you're
You're no no
talking
no.
when you
You're no no.
use no
You're superimposing
when
your
you
conception of
say
it
this
onto
is
my
because of
argument.
my faith,
I'm not
you're
accepting that.
suggesting that
I
it's all I'm doing is just arbitrarily believing in something
no,
when I
and I'm
actually
telling you
have
that
a
I'm not.
rational
And
basis
instead
to
of
believe in
asking me
things.
what I actually mean, you're
No,
continuing me.
Ibrahima, you're still implying things, even though you're not saying
Nah,
them
bro.
explicitly, and I'm calling
You
them
can
out because the
if
implications
you're
are
interested,
false.
you can ask me what you think I'm
Ibrahima,
implying, but
what
that's
did
not
you
what I'm
mean by
implying.
faith? What did you mean by faith?
The thing I mean by faith is that there are certain things about their argument that you don't understand, that you cannot articulate, right?
Right? Both of
And
us are
you
in that boat, by
still,
the way.
oh, sure. Well, up to what point? Because
Honestly,
not
out of us two, I think I understand climate science better than you do at this point.
if you understand something that's false better than I do, that's not really a flex. Anyway,
You don't even, dude.
Listen,
What
hold
I'm
on a
calling
second.
into
Hold on,
question
hold
is
on,
your
no, no,
ability
no,
to
no, hold on,
evaluate
hold
whether
on.
it's false in
Let
the
me.
first place. One,
Well,
two. My
yeah,
point
and
is, I
actually,
know
yeah,
more about the relevant science than you do. You didn't even understand how the tree ring thing worked, bro.
that's not true.
Then why did you question it as if you didn't understand how it worked, then, bro?
I didn't question it as if I didn't understand how it worked. I questioned it, bro. Listen, the literal definition that you pulled up literally talked about the same things that I did.
You
Literally,
didn't talk about
like
it until after the fact, though. You were repeating
that's
things that I
no,
said.
no, that's not true. That's not true. I actually, you can
You
go back and
never
watch it.
mentioned
No, no,
anything about how tree rings worked
Jason,
until after I read that,
Jason,
dude.
Jason, go back and watch the footage. It's on
I
there.
I,
This
I
is
I
recorded.
remember it, but I
No,
can
no,
watch it.
but
It's fine. I
that's
have to
fine.
watch it anyways to edit it.
Yeah, you got to watch it anyway, and you're gonna see that you're wrong.
This is the longest segment we've ever done. All right.
I know.
I gotta go. So you gotta get your last words in.
Yeah, look, point is there are a lot of inconsistencies that are being essentially skirted under the what's it called, the wayside. And the main one being the greenhouse gas effect being the cause of global temperature rise. You told me that the greenhouse gas effect is the primary cause. If and you told me actually you don't know that if there's any other causes. You said that of the rise of the temperature of the oceans and the atmosphere.
No,
And
no, the rise
if
of the
that
average global temperature was what I was saying.
but you said that it then causes what's it called, the temperature rise in the ocean, which then causes
I
polar
said
ice
the greenhouse
caps.
gas effect contributes to rising ocean temperatures and
But
rising temperatures
but
in various
but I
places on the
asked you
planet.
what else.
But
But
you
what I
said
asked you what
average
else
global
contribute.
temperatures. Hold on.
Yeah, but I asked you
Average
what else
global temperatures
contributes
is
to
not
it.
the same thing. Average global temperature is not the same thing as causing the average temperature in the ocean to get to go higher, or just ocean temperatures in certain parts of the ocean to get higher.
Okay, so
That's
exactly, but
those
one
aren't
of the
the same
charts
thing.
that I showed you, was the temperature in the places where the ice caps melt over the course of like eight
It
hundred
was in
thousand
one
years.
place, which is Greenland. Yes.
How many other places are there? There's like two.
Yeah. Okay.
So 50%.
First of all, I don't know that Greenland covers the entire North
And
Pole,
actually,
but fine.
Antarctica actually is a continent.
I
It's
know.
not just it's actually a landmass. So
Right.
we're talking about the North Pole, which
The
is
ice
not really a
shelves are melting.
landmass. Yes,
Right.
and we're talking about a land. We're not talking about a landmass. We're talking about ice caps, which is very different
Okay.
from the landmass that is Antarctica.
Okay.
So
That's fine. I
so
agree.
that is actually the place that we're talking about in question. And I showed you the relationship in time between
Okay.
that temperature
I
there
understand that.
and
All I'm
hold
doing is
on and
drawing a
hold on
distinction between
and
average global temperatures and that because they're not the same.
that's
That's
fine.
all I'm
That's
saying.
fine. But what I'm telling you is that the places that we're talking about are being affected by this greenhouse gas effect are not being affected by the greenhouse gas effect in the way that would be indicative that more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere means higher temperatures there. It's
Okay.
not.
So what do you think is causing the ice shelves to melt?
That's my entire point. I don't know, and no one really does. Like we don't know for a fact.
Well,
We really
the
don't.
experts have a theory, and you haven't
They
debunked
have
it,
a
so I'm gonna defer to them, and I think that's a reasonable position.
Sure, but that is an illogical conclusion. Absolutely.
It's the most reasonable one possible.
Not really. No, it's
What
not.
is a more reasonable conclusion that they're automatically wrong? Because that
Uh,
doesn't make sense to me.
no, actually, you don't assume something to be true just because someone has an authority. That's actually called appeal to authority. That's a
I'm not
logical
assuming it
fallacy.
to be true. I'm saying that it's most
But
likely
you
to be
are.
true. And I'm defer.
That's
No, I'm
but
saying it's
that's what
most
you're
likely
saying.
to be true. It's the most coherent theory we have, and you haven't presented an alternative one. So even if I wanted
So I
to
have to present
believe
it to
you,
alter. So I have to offer you an alternative view in order for that view to be wrong. That's
no,
simply untrue.
you
But that's
haven't even
untrue.
demonstrated the falsity of the view in the first place.
But Jason, what did I just talk about? I showed you that there is no relationship between the greenhouse gas and the temperature in the ice caps
No, you
and the
didn't.
temperature.
No, you did
No,
not.
but
You
hold on a
didn't
second.
show that there's no relationship. You just
Hold on a
showed that it
second.
doesn't necessarily. If you showed anything, you
No,
showed
no, I'm
that
sorry. Hold on.
it's possible for something other than greenhouse gases in the atmosphere to cause temperature to cause the average global temperature to rise. That's all you've
Uh,
shown. That's not a.
so
That's not.
no, but
That doesn't
hold on.
establish. Hold on.
Central.
That
No,
doesn't
no. Hold on a
refute the
second.
relationship between greenhouse gases and climatological phenomena at all.
No, no, no. Hold on a second. The central Greenland temperature going back 4,000 years, right?
Mhm.
in that period, we saw the highest temperatures in that area to have been higher than they are now twice.
Was Greenland always located in the same spot on the planet
Yes.
relative to the Earth's rotation? It's not
Oh, you're
true.
talking about the
It's not true. It's not true.
no? Wait.
It's the
First
place
off,
is the
I answered
landmass
before you
that
even
we
finished
now
the question.
refer to as Greenland, always
Yes.
located on the same place on the planet relative to the Earth's rotation? No. The answer is
Relative
no.
to the Earth's rotation or the tilt?
That both actually. Both.
W- oh,
No.
Okay, no,
Because
no. You're
because
you're
because
you're you're talking
because
about in
once
relation
upon a
to.
time,
No,
because
no.
once
Hold on.
upon a time, all of the land
You're
masses were conformed to each other in terms of Pangea, and so those land masses have shifted over time.
that's
They
like
they
a
they,
hundred
they
million years
weren't
ago, right?
all okay. Fair enough, but like they weren't
That's
always in
not,
the
bro.
same
That's
place.
completely no. But no, hold on a second, because what you just said actually does not make absolutely any
Okay,
sense.
explain why.
4,000 years ago,
Right.
Greenland.
No, not 4,000. We're talking about millions of years ago.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about Pangea, and the
Pangea
continents.
is like
The
a hundred
continents have
million years
shifted
old.
over time. Right.
What I'm
Like they
the,
shifted.
the period I'm talking to you about is the Bronze Age. That's 4,000 years ago. The Earth was literally
You mean 400,000 years ago, or
I said four
just
thousand.
4,000? Okay, so 4,000 years ago, Greenland was basically in the same place. Okay, fine.
Well, yeah.
Okay, we had charts that went
Either
back a
way,
million years, but okay, fine. I guess
oh
we'll just
sure,
pretend like that
and
doesn't count.
the one that went a million years shows the same thing, where like the average global temperature was literally peaking several times before the absolute unprecedented multiple times higher level of greenhouse gases. So
Okay,
you're telling
in that
me
million
that
years,
we can
are
have,
you claiming that nowadays Greenland, that landmass has not shifted at all in a million
bro?
years?
When was the last time we had what's it called? First off,
Do you think
that
that
chart
landmasses can't
is
shift in a
not the
million
same.
years?
Hold on a second. Global average temperature again, and we're making this decision. Global average temperature and the temperature in Greenland are two different things. And the charts
The
that I
temperature
showed
in
you,
Greenland went back a million years, did it not? The
no,
Greenland one? How
that
long did
one
it go
went
back?
back 4,000 years.
4,000 years.
Yeah,
So it
and
didn't even.
the average global temperature, the chart, it went back 1 million years,
Yeah, that's what I was talking
which
about.
had three peaks that were above the average global temperature today
Okay, fine. So then I
in
misremembered
the
them. So
last
fine.
400,000 years.
I'll concede that the Greenland one went back for however long you say it went back,
He
because I
said
can't see it right
4,000
now.
years.
Okay, fine. I
And
thought
the
that
one
was the one that went back a million years.
no,
Fine. So
the
in
one that
4,000
went
years,
back in
I don't think that the land masses at all have shifted that much, to be honest.
no, they have
I
not.
think that they have shifted quite a bit in a million years, though.
Even then, I don't think it's that drastic actually.
I think it would be significant enough to explain variations in the temperature there. But
Uh,
regardless, it doesn't matter. It
yeah,
doesn't matter because it's only 4,000 years. So I'll concede that point. Um, the fact of the
like
matter is, dude, I don't think
it
you.
takes like tens of millions of years for these tectonic plates to shift like that. Like a million years is not a long time, dude.
But it can shift significally enough to affect the
In
average
a million
temperatures.
years,
Yeah, I think so. To affect the average
I
temperatures of a
don't think
landmass.
so. I can look it up right now, but I very much doubt that. From what I can
Okay.
remember in geology class, that's not
Okay,
something
look it up.
that's possible.
I'll defer to the experts, like I always do, like you're doing right now. But the point I'm making is that's a reasonable thing to do. That's the only thing I've been. The point I've been trying to end us on is that even when you try to refute these things, you're depending on experts too. So
I'm
like
nah, I'm deferring. Okay, and what if the experts disagree? Then what do you defer to?
if
You
there's
defer to
this
the merit
overwhelming
of the
consensus.
arguments. Like, what do you,
No,
bro? That's
yeah,
not even,
exactly.
bro.
Wait, hold on,
That doesn't make
wait,
sense,
wait.
dude. And if it's like, and if
First of all, the merits of the arguments are always central, but your ability to actually properly
yes, but
evaluate
that
them
doesn't.
depends on what expertise you have or don't have. Right? One,
Sure, and
two,
that is actually a factor in
It
it.
would be the most
Absolutely.
reasonable to defer to what the consensus is, because that's the
And
best we can do.
that is a bandwagon fallacy. That is also a
No, it
logical
isn't.
fallacy.
No, it isn't, because if the reason why there is a
No, no,
consensus
hold on. No,
is
no,
based
I'm
on the
sorry.
merits
I'm
of the
sorry.
argument. Hold on. If the reason the
No, no,
consensus
no.
forms, if the reason the scientific consensus
But bro, what
forms
does
is
consensus
based on
mean?
the merit of the arguments or the merit of the science, then it's perfectly reasonable. It's only
What
when
does consensus mean?
hold on. It's only when the processes that are central to science are corrupted, and the consensus is formed on a basis other than that we would
Yeah,
question. We would have the right to question.
or they could just be wrong. Like that happens all the time.
Okay, but
Like
how would we know that though?
that's why we don't use consensus as a logical
We do
argument.
scientific
You got
consensus
it.
all the time. What are you talking
That's
about?
fine. People do, and as a matter of fact, it's also a logical fallacy. That has nothing to do with
It's
me.
not We're not using scientific consensus because we stupidly believe that scientific consensus proves the matter. We're using it because it's the best we have epistemologically.
Sure, we can absolutely defer to that, but my point is, it's like that's my entire point. It's still not a logical argument to prove that
Dude,
this is likely
how
this
can
is
it be
actually
reasonable but yet illogical? That doesn't make sense. It's the most reasonable thing you could possibly do under those circumstances.
it's reasonable because you can sort of derive like likelihood, for example, but likelihood and causation are not the same thing. If I'm trying to prove
Nobody
something
said
to
they are. Nobody said they are. Nobody said they are.
okay, and
But
that's
we
my
have a
entire point.
vested interest in
That
following
is
what
my
is the
entire
most
point.
likely to be accurate if we care about accuracy in any domain,
Yeah, but
especially in science.
if that's what you want to use as a criteria
I
for
gotta go,
this,
dude.
that's fine. But
I gotta
I
go.
I cannot simply ignore that.
All right, I gotta go. I'm already way over time, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
exit us. Do you want to say goodbyes real quick?
All right, y'all. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It was a pleasure. I'll see you again. We'll have the smoke for this, climate change thing again. But you, you gotta re-explore your assumptions here, my guy. Thank you very
These are
much.
my assumptions. These are fucking
They
expert
are your
assumptions, bro.
assumptions. That's fine. I don't
Whatever,
care.
bro.
I don't care if it's the
All right,
president of NASA,
I'm about to
bro.
send you off, and I don't want to do it disrespectfully, so I'm gonna ask you. Everybody say
Yeah, man.
goodbye to
Appreciate you having
Ibrahima.
me. Thank you very much.
All right, Ibrahima.